Right, here we are. I think we're live. Here's we are live. It's been a big journey for me. I've taken a bit of a trip through the interior of British Columbia to get myself rested, recharged, and ready to continue this marathon. I think I'm still on the main screen. Bring you guys up to where I am. Live Studio. I haven't mentioned I use Prism Live Studio as my streaming software. Very good streaming software if you're looking for something that's both inexpensive, it's free, you can pay for it, but why would you when it's free? I suppose the extra features at this point, still learning how to use the basic features. So, all right, looks like the mic is dialed in. The surroundings seem set. The lighting is good. Why wait 5 minutes? Let's just get into this. Let's make sure that the live chat is connected. Oh, we are connected. Victoria's here. Satora's here. Satori. Bella's mom. Ocean Sounds. Oh, I've got to switch it to live chat. If you're on top chat or top messages, you don't want that. You want it to see everyone. Make sure you're switched to all messages or live chat, whatever the case may be for your platform. Got my lovers here. Kitten Pusher. Bernice. Ocean Sounds. Ocean Sounds has been in early, checking out the scenery from beautiful Osoyoos, British Columbia. It's Canada's only desert. If you didn't believe Canada had a desert, we do. It's in Osoyoos. It's small, known as a pocket desert, geologically speaking. I'm no geologist, though. Perhaps I'll have a geologist on the show sometime to just speak about the lives of the rocks in this beautiful British Columbia area. I've reduced my latency. More of a techie thing, but what it should mean is the video runs a little bit more smoother because it's going to give me a bit of a buffer. That said, I'll be slightly behind the chat, so I'll be reacting to stuff that was said 10 to 12 seconds ago, so it won't seem like I'm quite as sharp as I am normally. I have gone back about just a minute. We only watch 1 minute or 1 hour and 17 minutes of footage from part 1 of this video. We'll be watching all of the rest of it up to the 4-hour mark tonight. Then I'll be posting the Dateline link to the rest of the video, which we won't be watching live together, but we could watch it together and comment on the stream, and you'd see the new comments pop up, and you'd see which ones of us have joined. Because I'm in a hotel room, I can't smoke my medical cigarettes, so one of my friends kindly gave me this. This is a medical marijuana beverage. It's cannabis infused, so I'll be able to drink that during the stream. So a more traditional intoxicant. This is a Sleeman Honey Brown Lager, local brewery to British Columbia. This one, I'm faking it. This one's just got water in it, but there's no cups here in the hotel room, so I'm reusing, reducing, reusing, recycling. Anyway, that are hellos. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. What's that? That's probably not what I wanted. Let's just press play. I'll keep an eye on the chat. I'm a little out of my sorts, so if I look a little, unsure of where everything is, it's because I've never set up in the hotel room like this before. But knowing I can definitely gives me more freedom of movement if this is something I can do in the future. Glad I bought a laptop instead of a desktop. Find the window, let's press play, and let's make sure there is sound.
Problem with that he wasn't objecting to that there wasn't going to be any problem with Christmas of 1989.
There shouldn't, and I had a verdict that gave me certain things. I don't know particularly what it said that year, but it was a verdict that said 1 year you, next year them.
As well, might this be a good time to take the afternoon recess?
Yes, sir.
That's where I took the break.
Our afternoon recess at this time. Will be in recess until 3 o'clock. Please remember the admonition.
We were in recess for 24 hours.
With respect, Mrs. Broderick, to the warning that you indicated that Judge Joseph gave to you about going back to jail if you were found in contempt again, if
Looking ahead, I think Judge Joseph testifies for the defense. There's definitely a judge that they call.
You would take a look at the May 4th, 1988 contempt transcript, page 63, starting line 17, and read through the next page, line 7. If you just look at that, does that refresh your recollection of what you're indicating with respect to his statements to you? And Judge Joseph was indicating there to you that his first concern was for the children and the difficulty that was created for the children and not wanting the children to suffer, correct?
Yes.
And he was also indicating his frustration at the contempt hearings and at holding you in contempt and the continuing contempts.
Frustrated with the progress of the case, yes.
He indicated that he felt that you were obviously an intelligent person, you understand the orders, and no matter what your frustration level is, you must resist the impulse to make the same statements over again in any manner where they can be heard by Mr. Broderick or the children or anyone else who's a resident in that house.
Right.
And he indicated, I expect you to comply with these orders, and if you don't, you're going to be back here, and I'm going to make a decision. And no matter what the fact of the decision is, you're going to be back in law school.
Right.
There were no other contempt actions filed against you after this, correct? I believe you've already testified to that.
Right, except the November 5th letter.
Now, you testified last week that you wanted Danny to take the bishop's exam. You were frustrated about the fact that he missed that exam, and you were angry at Mr. Broderick, and you said, quote, "Why are you doing this to your children? You've had your good education. Why are you doing this to the kids?"
Yes.
It is true that Francis Parker, the school that Danny was going to, is a very good school in San Diego.
Yes.
Correct? It's a very well-known private school.
Yes.
And so they were obviously getting a very good education at Francis Parker.
Right.
Danny had always gone to Francis Parker, correct?
Yes.
And it was close to where they lived in Marsden Hills.
Yes.
And he was doing very well there. He was getting good grades during
Yes.
the time that he lived with Mr. Broderick. During
Hey,
those
welcome,
years, he was
Carrefour.
getting very good grades and being a good student.
Yes, Danny always got good grades.
Good timing.
And Rhett also went there with him as well.
Yes.
The school liked them both.
Uh-huh.
And the psychologists felt that that was one constant in their lives that was good for them and that they should stay at Francis Parker.
Well, I wouldn't have known what a psychologist thought at that time because they weren't telling me what they thought.
Okay. The fact that Danny did not go to Bishop's and stayed at Francis Parker obviously did not affect their ability to get a good education, correct? They were getting a good education at Francis Parker.
Yes.
Now, you also testified with respect to the children that there was an everyday, constant, ongoing problem with them having no food, no milk, no cereal in the morning.
That's what they would tell me, yes.
Now, is your testimony that in 1986, 1987, 1980,
This is weird testimony to me, too, because she testifies about them always having rotten milk, and it's not like you buy rotten milk. The milk has to go bad, and then the implication is the milk was once good, so were they not drinking the milk? Were they not allowed to drink the milk? Or was the milk fine?
1989, that this was a constant, everyday,
Hey, Candace.
ongoing problem, that they had no food in the morning?
The breakfasts were an ongoing problem, yes.
In
There were
1980
times when it was a little better and it quieted down. But basically, they would complain to me that the mornings, especially, whether it was a weekend or a school morning, that there was no breakfast food in the house that they could fix themselves and there was no one there serving them.
In 1989 and 1988, when Sylvia Cavins was working there, are you indicating that they were complaining that there was no breakfast food?
I thought Sylvia was a good babysitter and she had maturity and stuff, but yes, they still complained to me about the specific breakfast foods and no milk and no cereal and no fruit. And
You had indicated that you had disagreements or you didn't like the various babysitters that Dan had over the years. You had problems with them. It is true, though, that for the last 2 years, or the 2 years prior to Mr. Broderick's death, Sylvia Cavins was working there, and Sylvia Cavins was a very accomplished and good babysitter housekeeper.
she was a mature person that had good judgment, and Dan treated Sylvia better than he had treated the real young girls he had earlier. And he respected when she requested a change or something, and she was okay. But
The fact of the matter is that there wasn't any problem then with the babysitters or the care that they were taking for at least the 2 years prior to November the 5th of 1989.
the problem being that I didn't want my children having a babysitter. That was the last 2 years when I was determined I was going to get my children back.
You indicated that the babysitters, that Dan couldn't keep any of the babysitters because they couldn't stand him. Isn't it true that the babysitters all liked him very much? Or Sylvia Cavins liked him very much, Robin Tua liked him very much, Linda David liked him very much, Marta Shaver liked him very much. They didn't quit because they didn't like Mr. Broderick.
Well, you didn't bring in the
Hey,
ones
Larissa.
that didn't like Mr. Broderick. There were a whole bunch of other ones with other names and other times, and you're only dealing 87 beyond.
Okay.
There were
so
lots
we'll
that quit because
we'll
they
go
hated
backwards. Sylvia Cavins was there for the 2 years prior to November the 5th.
Dan. I'm not sure if it was a full 2 years, but she was there for a while.
She indicated that she was hired in December of 1987, so 2 years less 1 month.
Okay.
And prior to her was Linda David, who was there for at least approximately a year.
Mhm.
And prior to her was Robin Tua, who was there for approximately a year. So that the prior 4 years were those babysitters who there really weren't any problems with.
All I know is what the babysitters that I knew told me,
Okay.
that there were lots of problems and they didn't like Dan, and he was cold to them, and he wrote them notes, and he was never happy. And I had Marika was the main one that complained to me.
Well, Marta Shaver was the first one who worked for him back in 1985 when he first
She
moved
wasn't.
to.
I don't think she was the first.
She was one of the first. She
one
was
of the
there for
first.
quite a while, correct?
I don't know how long she was there, but I think there was a girl with curly hair there before Marta.
Well, did you think that your kids were being starved, that they didn't have any food
Back then, yes.
in 1989, in 1988, in 1987? Is that what you're saying?
89, 88, 87.
Yeah, let's forget about years and years ago. Let's talk about the 2 or 3 years before.
As the
November
children were
5th.
getting older, they were always complaining to me that there was nothing in the house, and that's how Rhett got hit by a car. As he got on a bike to go
Hey,
up to
Deborah.
a Jack in the Box to get
Deborah.
French fries after school because he was starving and no one would give him a snack or something. So they would complain like that to me. I'm sure when Sylvia
Did you really
was
think
there,
that they were starving?
only what they told me.
No, I know,
didn't
but
think-
did you really take it seriously? Did you really
Their
think they were
complaint-
starving, or did they want some junk food? Or
Their complaint was there was dinner food for Dan, and when Dan came home for dinner, the family sat down to a dinner. If Dan did not come home, they were sent up to University Avenue for fast food, and they didn't.
But this is again Betty recategorizing, like, oh, they complained about being hungry and trying to turn that into a narrative as opposed to, oh, well, I just said I would kill him. That shouldn't be believed. But them saying that they were hungry, she instantly is they must be starving and there's no food in the home. If she truly thought there was no food in the home, she might have bought some butter. But Betty bought some butter, and she said that butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter, but a bit of better butter would make my batter better. So she bought a bit of butter, better than her bitter butter. Then she put it in her batter, and the batter was not bitter. So it was better. Betty bought a bit of better butter. I think it was better.
get a dinner.
Okay.
And there was not snacks, there was not fruit. And remember, please, that the babysitters were not there on the weekends, Friday night, Saturday, or Sunday, and they were never there for lunch
Remember,
or morning,
please, if you don't
even
mind.
during vacation. And summers were a huge problem because the babysitters didn't come until later.
Was this something that you were thinking about on November the 5th, 1989, when you drove over to Dan Broderick's house?
Not specifically, no.
Did it have anything to do with your state of mind that morning and why you were angry?
Everything that took place for the previous messy years built up, but no, not that specifically.
And you have indicated that as the children got older, obviously the problem was not getting worse. The problem, if there was a problem, was
Getting
certainly getting better.
Yes, definitely.
We've already talked a little bit about the attorneys that you hired. You had indicated that no one would represent you because they were afraid to go up against Dan Broderick. Obviously, that wasn't true with respect to Dan Jaffe. He was not afraid to go up against Dan Broderick, and he was willing to represent you. Yes or no?
Sort of, not yes or no, as he has testified. He did not want to represent me because he was in LA. But
Did that have anything to do with being afraid to go up against Dan Broderick? He wasn't afraid to go up against Dan Broderick.
No, but he didn't want to be bothered either. And he wasn't a San Diego lawyer.
What did Bill Glexman indicate that he was afraid to go up against Dan Broderick? He was willing to represent you, wasn't
But
he?
he wasn't a San Diego lawyer. That statement was made about San Diego lawyers.
Okay. Did Bill Hargraves indicate to you that he didn't want to represent you because he was afraid to go up against Dan Broderick? Obviously not, right? He represented you and he wasn't
He was
afraid to go up.
anxious to take this case and go up against Dan Broderick.
As
So
were
he could
many,
make
many
himself
attorneys
famous.
in town, weren't they? It was
There were a
good
lot of
case.
incompetent attorneys that solicited this case at night at home and were dying to represent me in this case.
So only the incompetent ones wanted to represent you and all the competent ones wouldn't do it. Is that what you're saying?
That's how it worked out, yes.
Just like Sarah.
Trisha Smith wasn't incompetent,
No, but I hadn't heard of her in the beginning.
but that's not what we're talking about. She was willing to take your case and she wasn't incompetent and she wasn't afraid of Dan
But I hadn't
Broderick,
heard
was
of
she?
her when I was looking for an attorney in 1985.
Okay, well, so then there wasn't a problem as of 1987 when you hired Trisha Smith, correct?
And she was in Del Mar. I was, looking for a San Diego city attorney. She was
Is
in
that
Del
why
Mar.
you fired Trisha Smith, because she was in Del Mar?
No.
Okay.
I fired her because she couldn't get anywhere against Dan and it was a colossal waste of money.
And the fact is, even Mr. Hargraves, when you talked to him about the fact that nobody would take the case, everybody was afraid to go up against Dan Broderick, he talked to you about the fact that that wasn't true, that there were 7,000 lawyers in San Diego, many of which would willingly take this case.
That's what I've said to you. There were lots of them that wanted to get involved with the case for the notoriety of just getting to know Dan Broderick would have been a feather in Bill Hargraves' cap. He wanted to be a participant in this case because of the mediation and stuff. It would have been
Okay,
a great
what if-
feather in his cap.
What about B. Snyder, Rebecca Prater, Sandra Morris?
Rebecca.
Prater, Prater. Those were all good, competent lawyers who would have taken the case, weren't they?
Well, I don't know how good they were then. Bea Snyder herself was going through a divorce and cried at the one appointment I had with her. I was referred to her as a wonderful attorney. She broke down in tears and cried about her own divorce at my appointment. And I thought, well, I guess she's not really in quite the shape to take on my case. So that's why I didn't hire her. And Trisha Smith ended up being in her own divorce during my case too.
And what about Rebecca Prater and Sandra Morris and the other attorneys that were recommended to you? None of them quite fit the bill for what you wanted, did
None
they?
of them were like Dan Jaffe, correct. Dan Jaffe, and there was a man in North County, Hennenhofer. Hennenhofer would have been
This is like Sarah's complaint, too. My first lawyer promised me the world, and then he was gone, and nobody could ever live up to what he promised me.
exactly the kind of attorney I needed.
When you hired Trisha Smith, you thought Trisha Smith was exactly the type of attorney that you wanted.
Right?
That's what
I
you
thought
said.
she was good. Mhm.
Okay.
It's always going to be more Sarah. I'm not sure if it's always going to be more court. But Sarah is claiming that Judge Jackson's
And-
math was off. And I don't know how that gets resolved after a final judgment. Like, yeah, you can have that opinion. Bye-bye. Bye, Felicia.
February of 1988, you fired Trisha Smith.
Yes, in the courtroom in frustration. Excuse me, I don't think I fired her. I told her I didn't want her to represent me on that contempt order on one of those days, the second to last one.
Well, you also completely and irrevocably fired her from representing you in any way, shape, or form, didn't you?
No, I didn't. In fact, I wanted her to continue and
Oh, is my
represent me on
timer
the
even
divorce,
on?
as did the judge in
Yeah.
the courtroom that day.
I'll get rid of
She was
that.
just not representing me for those contempts because I thought they were a waste of time and money.
May I have marked as People's Exhibit 94, a letter dated January 18, 1988.
Somewhere.
Get out of here, timer. Got lots of time.
Did you not send a letter to Trisha Smith saying, "So much for your Ruth Roth idea. I have felt totally unrepresented by you since the summer of 1986. I have felt raped and robbed by your methods of extracting fees, always in advance of any services. I can no longer afford the emotional or financial strain of calling you my attorney."
I don't know if I ever sent her that letter.
Okay.
It sounds
I
like
know I
something.
wrote it because I was extremely frustrated about the waste of money and her not getting anywhere. I was
Do you
just,
recognize that letter?
I recognize my writing. I don't know if I ever sent it. I wrote a lot of things that I never sent.
Well, do you recall at that hearing in February of 1988, Trisha Smith telling the judge that she had just received a communication from Betty Broderick indicating in no uncertain terms that she did not want me to be her attorney for any purpose any longer?
I don't know if she's referring to this letter, but that was not the discussion as I recall it in the courtroom, if you'd read on.
If you would take a look at the transcript dated February 24th, 1988, page 1, the yellow portion, does that refresh your recollection about what Trisha Smith told the judge?
Guarantee she's going to testify rather than just say yes.
So you have to read on for the discussion that ensued, is that I definitely wanted her to represent me on the divorce But if that meant going into court on
Takes it
stupid,
away.
wasted money, contempt, I did not want to pay an attorney to waste time and money like that anymore.
Did she not tell the court that you had indicated to her, based on a communication, which presumably is that letter, in no uncertain terms, that you did not want her to be her attorney for any purpose any longer?
That's what she said there, but
Okay.
if you keep reading on, it was agreed upon in court that she would continue representing me on the big picture divorce and that something would be done. And that's the same hearing where she
She never
complained.
continued to represent you. You fired her.
No, I didn't fire her.
You don't say even in your own book that you fired her? Wait a minute.
It's hard to believe Betty
I have
Broderick
fired Trisha Smith. I can't
batter
stand
would
the
not be
emotional and
bitter.
financial cost of having her anymore.
When is that?
This is the
But when is it talking
reported
about?
book. I'm just asking you at any point, did you fire Trisha Smith?
No, I really didn't fire her. We had in the courtroom, I was totally frustrated with what was happening and the way that she took that check that we came up earlier, that there was a $221,000 check and she took half of it or something. And so I was frustrated with Trisha Smith, but I didn't fire her and I wanted her to stay on the case. And it's in these transcripts somewhere.
Did you say in your book? Or the
She was getting nowhere.
I really love just watching how the prosecutor gives her papers and she can't wait to take them away from her because she knows Betty's going to like start reading them and come up with testimony rather than answer whatever she's asking.
Did you say, I have fired Trisha Smith?
That's what it says, but I don't know what time it's talking about. After Trisha Smith left
Did you
town-
say, I can no longer afford the emotional or financial strain of calling you my lawyer?
Right.
Did you also say that you had fired her because you thought she was kissing up to Dan Broderick?
I don't.
Oh, wow.
That's about
That's
the
extreme.
friendly letter she wrote to Dan without a copy to me. Dear Dan.
Addie is me says, Dan D. True Crime, I have more sympathy for Lauren Armstrong than LWAP Sarah. So Sarah set such a low bar that even Lauren clears the bar. Wow. Not great company, Betty.
And I know you're getting this big check. If you'd send me this big check behind Betty's back, which wasn't printed in there,
Behind Betty's
I will
back.
send you back your
Betty Broderick's batter behind Betty's back.
half within 24 hours, and I'll keep her half of this big check for my attorney's fees. I didn't even know that check was coming, and I was very upset that she did things like that behind my back.
And
Your
you
own
fired
attorney is not
her.
supposed to do that.
And
Thank you,
fired her,
Elizabeth.
right?
No.
You felt she was kissing
I
up
wrote
to Dan
things like
Broderick.
this that I was getting.
Got a few Elizabeths in the chat. Between LZB, Elizabeth, who's just joined us and left a comment. Detective Wobefit is also an Elizabeth. A lot of Elizabeths brought to the Elizabeth Broderick trial, it seems.
Very upset that she was doing things behind my back, and she charged me over $30,000 at that point and never gave me an accounting of why I owed her $30,000, and still has never yet done that. It's $37,000, I think.
Did you not say in your book that now it was becoming more and more apparent that Trisha Smith was kissing up to Dan? by
Neither
becoming
is
a friend of
no.
Dan's?
Satori Hisu asks an interesting question on the poll. There should be a neither option for sympathy. If you have no sympathy for either of them, then it's not easier to have sympathy for Betty than Sarah, because both of them are absolute zero. So no is the correct answer for neither.
Her career would be launched as one in the in crowd. Before taking this case, no one had ever heard of Trisha Smith.
That's true.
So her writing a letter to Dan Broderick about
Getting
the
money.
splitting of a community asset you felt was inappropriate.
The way she did it and the way that she would not let my books for a moment reflect that I got that money in. She did it very improperly, in fact,
Okay.
illegally. I have no
You
way
also-
to prove I paid her all that money.
You also, at the time that you fired, or at least that she indicated in no uncertain terms, you had fired her on February 24th, 1988, that at the same time you fired Brian Brennig, who had been appointed as the appraiser on your behalf. You fired Ruth Roth, who had been appointed to mediate the case. You fired the accountant that she had assisting on the case. You indicated that you wanted to handle this yourself and had fired all those people.
This was, as I was going to say, the beginning of 1988. I was fed up with everything. I couldn't have fired Ruth Roth and Brennig and some accountant that has no name because I never hired those people.
But you knew that Trisha Smith had hired them on your behalf to represent you in this case. She was representing you. She'd hired an appraiser. She'd hired an accountant. She tried to get Ruth Roth to mediate. Everything was going along and moving forward.
Everything
And you
was
came
going
in and
nowhere.
fired them.
This is a year after I hired her, a 12-month calendar year. Nothing had been accomplished insofar as anything. A whole year later.
Right, but things were starting to be accomplished
No.
because these people had, okay. Does
Dan
it
Broderick
indicate,
never sent those records over, and this is
does it
probably,
indicate, excuse me, on February 24th, 1988, line 15 through 19, that you had also fired Brian Brennig?
that's what it said there, but I couldn't have fired those people that I never hired.
At the time, you knew that the court had ordered Dan Broderick to pay the fees for these people. She'd gotten an order for the court to pay, for Dan Broderick to pay $12,000 to Trisha Smith for her attorney's fees, $5,000 to Mr. Brennig to begin work, another $2,000 for depositions. This was money that the court was ordering Dan Broderick to pay, your expenses on the divorce, $5,000 to Trisha Smith's billing as justified, additional amounts as necessary on notice motion. You were aware of that, correct?
All I was aware of, he was ordered to pay Ruth Roth, and then she ended up suing me because he refused to pay.
May I have marked as People's 95?
95,
A minute order, dated April 2nd, 1987.
somewhere.
Care for JCYT says, why am I so fascinated by the narcissistic cases? Tellez, Brooks, Betty,
You
Sarah,
could take a
others.
look at that minute order. Does it refresh your recollection about whether or not the court had ordered Dan Broderick to pay the fees for these people?
And I agree.
Yeah, but I don't know if he did.
I think it's a perfect
Well, they
mix.
got fired.
A year later. That's April 1987 order. Now you're talking about
Do
1988.
you remember Dan Broderick having to go into court after 1989 to get a return of the money, the $5,000 that he paid
It was never
for Mr.
used.
Brennig?
It was
It
never used.
used, that's right. But he paid it, hadn't he? He had to go to court to get
Paid
it
it
back.
to Trisha Smith. Didn't pay it to me. I don't know who he paid it to.
He paid it to the accountant that was going to be representing him.
I'm not a party to that, so I wouldn't have known that.
You were present at the time that this order was made, weren't you?
Right. But I don't know if he paid and who he paid, and I know he got it back in 1989. He requested it back.
You were angry at Trisha Smith's representation of you from the very beginning because you didn't feel she was aggressive enough against Dan Broderick, correct?
When I hired Trisha Smith, I had gone through the Hargreaves, Glucksman, Christmas of the no support and trying to get emergency support and the reconsideration. And looking back in my diary,
Hello, Phoenix.
from the first I hired Trisha Smith, I was calling her every day. I was hysterical. I needed something settled in early of 87. And as 87, the year went by, and I got more and more frustrated and more depressed and spent more and more money and nothing happened. I got extremely upset with frustration at Trisha Smith and the system and everything else. 87 was a
upset
very
because
bad year.
She wasn't being forceful enough,
Right, she wasn't getting anything done.
but she wasn't being forceful enough with your words. She wasn't being
Whatever it
aggressive
takes to
enough.
get something done, she couldn't get anything done. Nothing.
And when she didn't return your calls, this is what was causing so much anxiety and distress.
Right? She was getting married. She went on a honeymoon. Her friend had a baby. She took vacations. She was not returning my calls. And I
She
was
had a life to live beyond representing you, is what you're saying.
very much so. And I was a basket case before I even found her.
Phoenix.
I was very, very nervous and desperate
Welcome.
to get
If I
something
had my
settled
bell,
before
I'd
she
ring
even
it.
came on the job.
Phoenix Rising, who I haven't seen in the chat before, says Betty just made the exact same facial expressions and mannerisms as Suitcase Our Lady of Magnum Woodbridge Chardonnay Sarah. And that's 100% why this marathon is happening. I saw just enough in the beginnings of looking into this trial to know that there would be moments where we're just blown away by the similarities. And the differences are so stark too. So if you look at Sarah's arguments that she tried bringing in her trial, they were just like she had no business bringing them. Betty at least has business bringing the arguments, so it's really a matter of how effective her delivery of it is. And like you've noticed, sometimes her delivery is exactly like Sarah's, which can't be helping her, despite the fact that there is a lot more gravitas to her complaints. Like she did suffer what she says. She's not just making it up whole cloth, but she weaves in enough stuff that she makes up. she minimizes and takes pleasure in the things she did wrong, to the point where, you know, any difference between her and Sarah gets lost in the fact that they're testifying like the same type of monsters. It's a fascinating case. Welcome to the chat, Phoenix Rising.
You referred to the letters that she had sent to Mr. Broderick, and Mr. Broderick sent to her regarding the sale of the Fairbanks Ranch. May I have marked, Your Honor, as
Hey, another one to say.
96.
A series of one.
If I look more laid back, it's because I'm just sitting up in an easy chair with my feet on the bed.
Letters.
This is
All three letters marked 96.
a hotel look, not my regular studio look.
If you could just take a look at these letters and simply just identify them for me. Are these the letters that you're referring to, where she was writing to Mr. Broderick and he was
Happy
writing
shower,
back to her
Bella.
regarding how to split that
Bella's mom?
$222,000?
Been told by my mom that Lola's going to be watching me on TV because she likes the sound of my voice. Going to be upset that I'm not upstairs podcasting when she hears me on the
Now, what's the
TV.
question about this one?
Are these the letters that you're referring to? You indicated that you were angry about her letters to Dan Broderick, where he...
I've never seen this letter before. All I knew was the one. This is a letter from Dan Broderick to Trisha Smith telling her about some check coming. All I was aware of was a letter from Trisha Smith to Dan Broderick, because I was never aware of this check coming at all. And none of these letters are copied to me.
That's a great difference between Sarah and Betty. Betty's like cheap champagne, and Sarah's like, oh, champagne. All they had was cheap champagne. Sarah's like, they had champagne? That's the way I should have worded it.
I didn't even know this check was coming until it was too late.
Well, then how was it that you were upset about her overly friendly letters to Mr. Broderick?
When I went to her office and she was on vacation, I asked for the file and I saw this letter. The secretary gave me the file and I saw this letter with no copy to me, and I was absolutely flabbergasted. I had no idea about the money or anything.
So for the record, you're when you say I saw this letter, since we had several of them
At
in
her
our
office.
you're referring to the letter that's dated August 18th, 1987, where it starts out, Dear Mr. Broderick, and it ends, Very truly yours, Trisha Smith.
I think that's the one I saw, yes.
And that's the one that upset you because you felt that she was kissing up to Dan Broderick?
I thought she was doing things behind my back. She never told me this check was coming. And she obviously knew since the day before this letter, because Dan wrote to her and told her this check was coming. I had no idea the check was coming, and I did not approve of the way she handled her getting that check in her account and paying me back my half less what she said I owed her, when giving me no accounting whatever of how and why I owed her that much.
And you wrote a letter to Dan Broderick telling him, which is included here, telling him that you didn't want that to happen. You wanted the letter to be, or the check to be sent directly to you, correct?
She always finds a way to testify instead of just the yes, no. And the prosecutor always gets mad. Oh, that was a yes. My favorite part of Shakira flabbergasted is the
You wanted to
boyfriend
report,
coming up,
Mr. Jaffe
dukes
to the
up.
State Bar for his handling of the case. You wanted to report Mr. Hargraves to the State Bar for his handling of the case. You wanted to report Trisha Smith to the State Bar for her handling of the case.
No, only Mr. Hargreaves.
Do you not indicate in your diary here requesting attorney disciplinary procedures
All right,
on
not
Mr.
my lover.
Jaffe
We'll
for
catch you
non-action,
later.
on Mr.
We'll be going
Hargraves
late
and Trisha
tonight,
Smith for
much longer. I
non-action?
don't have anything to do after, so
What's the question?
could go for a
Did you
while.
not, were you not considering requesting attorney disciplinary procedures against each of the attorneys who represented you?
No, this doesn't say that at all.
Requesting attorney disciplinary procedures.
I don't know what that means.
Is that your handwriting?
Yeah, but I don't know what requesting attorney disciplinary procedures would mean, except it asks for the instructions to complain about somebody or something.
It sounds exactly like the sort of thing Sarah would write, doesn't it? Let's just go back a half second. I don't know what it means to request disciplinary procedures against my lawyer. That's just weird. I wouldn't know what that means.
Attorney disciplinary procedures against each of the attorneys who represented you.
No, this doesn't say that at all.
Requesting attorney disciplinary procedures.
I don't know what that means.
Is that your handwriting?
Yeah, but I don't know what requesting attorney disciplinary procedures would mean, except it asks for the instructions to complain about somebody or something.
May I have this marked here on his people's exhibit books?
97?
97.
Could we have a volume of the diary that
Certainly.
I'm going to have to look. I don't have it at the top of it.
All right, just supply
It's
it.
dated September 22nd, 1987.
There are letters, Super Kelly G, but not to the judge. Uh-oh. Is this me? No, that's the stream. Don't worry, we're all still here. Gonna scrub ahead to see if we get any different outfits later on
Obviously,
today.
after 1989, after January of 1989, when the divorce was over,
A little foreshadowing. It looks like the prosecutor's wearing an outfit made from the same material as Betty's sweater. But, yeah, we'll look at that later.
you hired Mr. Houseline, Herman Houseline, to do the appeal, correct? And you hired Walter Mond to represent you for the seeking custody of the boys.
I hired Walter Mond. His friend was Herman Houseline. He referred me to him.
You hired both of those attorneys to represent you in 1989.
Yes.
So there wasn't anything that Mr. Broderick was doing to prevent you from being represented by an attorney at any time during 1989, was there?
No.
Okay. And you indicated that having to go to court was something that distressed you, that you did not want to have to do. It is true that Mr. Broderick offered to stipulate to the bifurcation so that you didn't have to go to court, correct? He sent you a letter explaining what that was.
Right, and I would not sign and agree to that. I would agree to any sort of a settlement or split of things. I would not agree to across-the-board divorce with no settlement. That would be
Well-
very foolish of me.
Didn't he send you a letter explaining that this was just a bifurcation of the,
Just
Of the
a
divorce?
bifurcation. Nothing to worry about, just a bifurcation. That's the original video again.
status?
Yeah.
And didn't have anything to do with settling the case one way or the other?
Correct? There wouldn't have been a reason in the world I would have signed that.
Because you had no desire at that point to get a divorce. You were not.
Oh, I
wanting
had
to
every
sign-
desire in the world to get a divorce, but
In
a
March-
divorce to me means
Hey,
community
LCB.
property support,
Welcome.
children, visitation, custody, those sorts of things. A divorce doesn't mean an empty piece of paper and I get nothing.
Mark, may I have marked as People's 98, a letter dated March 31st, 1986.
So, Mark.
A little warning, I forgot to bring any of my sound effects with me, so
He did, he sent you this letter.
I have to ring the
explaining what
bell. I'm just going to say
bifurcation was,
ding
asking
rather
you
than ring a bell
to
tonight.
stipulate to it, correct?
Yes, and I'm glad you showed me this because it's typical that it's such a,
Mrs. Broderick, if you could just identify, did he send you that letter?
yes, dear Beth. Oh,
That's actually
it doesn't say
interesting.
dear Beth on any other of the letters you have there.
There's a channel I subscribe to. I think her name's Rebecca Zung, Z-U-N-G. She's a lawyer that specializes in narcissists. I guess she's like a divorce lawyer, family law lawyer that does YouTube videos about how to deal with a narcissist going into that sort of environment. And she posted 5 messages that you'll get from a narcissist just before your divorce court hearing. And one of them sounded very much like the one that they're just brought into the record. Basically, that kind of cloying, like you use a nickname that garners affection and like, hey, babe, why can't we just, we used to have such a good thing. Couldn't we just work it out ourselves instead of the lawyers? And her interpretation of that is like, you don't answer that. You give it to your lawyer. That's him asking for you to abandon your legal representation and all the support that's gotten you to the point where, a judgment's about to be given in your favor. So interesting.
Believe me.
December 2nd, 1985. Here's a letter. It says, Dear Beth.
Is this the one, get your furniture or else? See, this is another one, just like it. And you were refreshing my recollection. These letters look innocuous on face value, just like the one on November 5th is going to look innocuous. Those letters say all kinds of hidden messages to me, like, Dear Beth, I'm taking the kids for Christmas. That's a threatening letter with his deadline that I got it after the deadline. And look at that face value. No problem there to anyone else in this room, right? And that was a really ratty letter. Dear Beth.
He did make a settlement proposal as well in May of
5 texts a narcissist sends before court. Oh, it's a little bit small. But the fake olive branch, we'll just read that one. I don't even want to fight anymore. Can't we just handle this like adults? The lawyers are making everything worse. What this really means, I want you to drop your legal protection so that I can negotiate directly with you where I have more control. What to do? Do not respond. Screenshot it. Forward it to your attorney. The text is designed to get you to bypass your legal counsel. This is never in your interest. Anyway, I'll post a link to her channel. I think it could be interesting to people who are just interested in narcissists in general. Like, I'm not married. I'm never going to be going through a divorce, yet I find her advice about how to deal with it fascinating. So I'll post it.
1986, he sent you a proposal making a proposal for settlement, correct?
A proposal that I could not decipher anything, and I had no attorney at the time. And I would never agree to anything.
People's 99. A document entitled Marital Settlement Proposal dated May 7th, 1986.
So marked.
If you could just identify for us, did he send you this marital proposal?
Right.
Victoria, I'll post that link in a couple minutes then too, the Ascendant Action videos. Those are in my history. I haven't watched them in full yet. I'm waiting to finish the marathon and then maybe I can do analysis on different videos.
That he entitled this Dear.
Do separate reviews of other Betty content as standalone videos after the marathon's done. But I'll post that link, Victoria.
That's as well?
Yes, because he wanted me to agree to it. By that point, it was like, oh no.
He did originally agree to mediate the case with Bill Hargraves. He came down for a meeting at Bill Hargraves' office, correct?
I was surprised he showed up. Yes, he did. He showed up.
And obviously, he didn't have to. There wasn't any court order that made him go there. He agreed to go there and show up. Okay?
Right.
He also agreed to arbitrate the case in 1987 when Trisha Smith was on the case. He wrote her a letter offering to arbitrate rather than go to trial.
I don't know if we did that.
He agreed to mediate the child custody issue with Ruth Roth, correct? He agreed to go to Ruth Roth, just like you were going to Ruth Roth to attempt to mediate the child custody dispute?
I thought that's what we agreed to in court and stuff, but then he wouldn't pay Ruth Roth, and that didn't work.
You're indicating that the mediation fell through with Ruth Roth because he wouldn't pay?
I know he didn't pay. I don't know the exact sequence of events, but I know she ended up suing me and I had to go to court and show the judge.
That's because you were supposed to pay for your bills and he was supposed to pay for his bills.
No, that's why I won in court. No, the letters said that if he demanded that I participate in that he would have to pay the bills, and then he refused to pay. So I won that case in court where I represented myself.
He tried to get a firm visitation schedule when you were having the problems, going back and forth, when it wasn't working out with the kids, trying to make the arrangements. He wrote you a letter trying to get you to tell him what weekends you wanted, what weeks you wanted, so that it could all be settled without having to use the kids, didn't you?
Well, what time frame are you in?
in 1988. May have marked her on her as People's 100. A letter dated May 11th, 1988.
So, Mark?
It's funny you mentioned astrology, Victoria. We did a morning coffee session where we were just doing personality tests and answering them as though we were Sarah Boone as a group. Like if I wasn't sure of an answer, we'd do a poll on it. But basically, you know, the what color are your parachute, the Myers-Briggs, that sort of thing. But we started plugging Sarah's astrology into it as well and just asked the AI to give us an interpretation of a narcissist that is also Pisces, or Libra. She's a Libra. Also a Libra, also born in the year of the fire snake, also a red parachute. And it was eerie how well the astrology actually helped the profile of Sarah. Like I kind of threw it in to really make it entertainment. So, you know, to make it clear, we're not trying to diagnose her through internet personality testing, but the astrological angles did nothing to make the profile sound like, okay, that's not her anymore. They helped. So, you know, I kind of think astrology is much more, you know, fun than reality, but I can be entertained. Like as long as it fits the overall picture, I don't think it necessarily detracts from facts if it's part of a fact and astrology based video. So yeah, you don't have to discount it for astrology, but it definitely lowers its credibility. I don't think she is doing that badly, Addie. I just don't think she's doing that well either. I don't think she thinks she's doing good. My God, I'm reading Addie's comment and it was like Betty could hear me saying it. Like, yes, I am doing well versus this lawyer. I think they've sparred in the past and Betty feels like she's gotten the better of her, feels like she's a higher station in life than the prosecutor, who does go on to become a judge and just retired in 2018 off of the Southern District of San Diego Supreme Court or something like that. So good for Judge Carrie Wells, who's now retired. Yeah, Betty, she's holding her own. It's just that I don't think a lot of this testimony is good for her, regardless of it being cross. Like she's not giving up a lot, but she's not, I don't know, not a lot to be gained either. It's
you asking you to give a list of weekends or a list of weeks that you wanted to have the children so that it could be set and schedule could be set and there wouldn't be any misunderstanding.
This is a letter from his attorney. Not from Dan. I don't remember this letter. If I read it, I might remember. By May of '88, when they weren't showing up at the mandatory settlement conferences and everything, I didn't even read. If I got this letter, I didn't even read it. And look, there's but I wasn't agreeing to anything that they presented to me like that. I wanted a full
So
set.
even though they were offering to attempt to resolve the scheduling of visitation,
Right.
and giving you a schedule where you could request which weekends and which weeks you desired to spend with the boys, so that it would be set, you just
In May of
anything to do
'88,
with
that was much too late. Too little, too late, as the saying goes. It's 19.
So you weren't willing to agree to any kind of visitation?
No, we were going to trial on this case.
Okay.
It was way beyond any kind of agreement. And I didn't have an attorney. I wasn't signing up for anything with them.
He did go to the court-ordered conciliation meetings. He went to 3 different ones where he was ordered to go to.
This is 1985.
1986 and 1987, 2 in 1986 and 1 in 1987. And you didn't appear at any of those, did you?
I didn't even know about those. I remember one, Mr. Jaffe's office called me like 9 o'clock in the morning and said, "You're supposed to be somewhere now." And I said, "I'm not going anywhere without an attorney." I wasn't presenting myself anywhere without an attorney.
You indicated that you were upset because he had canceled his deposition. It is true. Well, do you know how depositions are set, by the way?
No.
They just send you a notice and they say, by the way, your deposition is going to be set on such and such a date.
Send me a notice?
No, anybody.
I've never been noticed.
Just the conversation.
That's not evidence.
Stan, she doesn't know how they're set as
Okay.
well. She wants
I've
to
never
know.
been noticed for a deposition. I wouldn't know.
So you wouldn't know about whether or not you're given an opportunity to set a date that's convenient or whether you're just noticed of a particular date.
All that I know about this is Trisha Smith told me that she had scheduled one with Dan, and she had a court reporter, and she was ready, and they were waiting for Dan, and he didn't show up, and he feigned ignorance of the date
Hey,
or
Claire.
something, and she was really annoyed. That's all I know about depositions.
You do know that whether or not he was available to take that deposition, whether or not he was in court, something else came up. The deposition was taken on July 20th, 1987.
I know that he finally showed up for one, but he did it while he knew I was in Hawaii, so I couldn't be there. That was the same trip I was supposed to take the children on, and he was pre-noticed of those dates, and he showed up while I couldn't be there.
Well, your attorney was there, right? Trisha
Right.
Smith is the one who took the deposition.
Yes. But she would have rather had me there, I think.
And the deposition was taken on July 20th, 1987, in which Trisha Smith asked him about all of his finances, all of his declarations, all of his financial papers, all of his tax returns, all that stuff,
Mhm.
back in 1987.
Yes.
And he specifically denied at that time that there were any hidden assets whatsoever, correct?
If that's what it says in there.
There is no hidden money or no hidden bank accounts. There are no hidden assets in any way, shape, or form. You can spend from now until doomsday looking. You won't find anything else. There is nothing else. I know respondent believes otherwise. She's mistaken. If there was anything else, I would have engaged in income tax fraud and probably a lot of other things. There is nothing else.
Except that we found at least those 2 bank accounts that he emptied, so he was obviously lying about those then.
Okay.
And
well,
whatever else there was that I wasn't lucky enough to uncover.
Those bank accounts that you say that were empty, those were part of the records. The only reason you knew about it is because they were on his records. There wasn't anything he was hiding from the records. You just hadn't seen
They were
it
in
before.
bank records, not his records.
More
Right, and all of his
testifying.
bank records were turned over. When Trisha Smith did the deposition, he turned over all of his bank records, and you even indicated yourself that one of your friends was going through it when you were representing yourself, and they saw that, correct?
Yes,
So there
during the
wasn't-
trial in 1989.
Right. Well, you were representing yourself at that time. By that time, you didn't have an attorney who was going through the records. You were going through them yourself,
But
and that's when you saw that there had been a transfer of money. There wasn't anything hidden about it. It was right there in the records, correct?
see, you'd already just shown me a supposed settlement offer that he was in a friendly tone making me that I wouldn't accept, and he doesn't mention that money missing in there.
It's on his bank records that were turned over as far back as 1987, correct?
I don't know that. Trisha Smith was complaining in 1988 that she had not received certain bank records. They could have been the ones that were turned over in late 88 to Trisha Smith, just before she got off the case.
And when you questioned him about it at the divorce trial, it came out. There wasn't anything that was being hidden. And he explained that there was a transfer of money from his savings account to his checking account so that he could pay $62,000 worth of state income tax for 1984. And he showed the documentation for doing that.
No, that's wrong. He said at court in the divorce trial that he emptied those accounts because his brother Larry needed $1 million.
Okay, if you would take a look at the divorce transfer, page 614, with respect to the question of the $80,000 withdrawal, you can read this page and see if that refreshes your recollection about what he said that $80,000 withdrawal was for.
Feeling Betty
See,
and
the money that I'm talking about earlier was withdrawn 2 days before he walked out in February of 85. So this is different money here.
You
On May
were
5th.
complaining about two withdrawals of money and
Before he left.
before he left.
Well, May 5th, 1985 isn't before he left.
Well, these are the only two, the $80,000 withdrawal and the $175,000 were the only two that you were complaining about, and he was explaining what happened to that money. Did he not explain that?
These aren't the same monies. This says the reason I borrowed $62,000 that day from the corporation, this wasn't even, I don't think, corporation money, was so I could pay state income taxes. He testified in that trial that his brother Larry needed $1 million.
Okay,
I get the feeling that Betty and Larry didn't get along right from day one.
we'll get to that. You complained about two. One was the $80,000 withdrawal, $80,000 withdrawal, which you said emptied an account. I'm asking you about that one right now. Does he not explain that he emptied that account to pay the taxes and paid the $62,000 worth of state taxes.
All I remember specifically was these withdrawals were before he walked out on February 28th. Right here, he says it's an $80,000 withdrawal that was made on May 5th of 1985. I think we're
So he
talking
was
about different withdrawals.
Okay.
This may be a pension fund withdrawal or a million of other withdrawals.
With respect to the withdrawal of $175,000, he explained that he loaned that to his brother Larry, correct?
Let me see here. Is that what it says? He paid the loan on April 4th, 40 days later with interest, and Dan forgot. $177,590. That's one of them.
That's the $175,000 that you questioned about. And he showed the documentation that he made the loan to his brother on
On
February
February
22nd.
22nd.
And the loan was repaid on April the 4th
But
with
he
interest.
never showed that anywhere.
Doesn't he show it and explain it right there and show the
Yeah,
documentation?
because he got caught. He showed it, but it never showed up anywhere before.
It was in the records. That's how you knew about it. It was in his bank records.
I don't think it went like that.
Well, how else did you know about it?
It showed withdrawals and closing accounts.
Right,
So
it
where
showed
would the
it-
money have come back in? What account?
This is what he shows you here. He's got a copy of the money market account statement for the month of April that showed where the money had been repaid.
Well, how would I know about that account? All I had were the bank statements that two things were closed right before he walked out.
Right,
And
and
he
you
never admitted
confronted
that the
him
money-
with that, and he explained and showed the documentation
He explained
of
he
what had
forgot.
happened.
That is
He
pretty
explained
shallow.
He forgot, and now that the judge ordered him to come back after the lunch.
So Victoria brings up that Larry, the brother, sued Linda's family for the insurance money because it was determined that Linda died before Dan. So that means that her assets go 100% to Dan as the beneficiary instead of to her family, because it's not like Dan died at the same time as her. Dan survived her long enough to be the beneficiary of all of her stuff, and then to have it go to Dan's beneficiaries, who I'm sure Larry may have been one. So definitely that's a pretty slimy move for.
Break and explain where that money went. That's his explanation of where the money
The
went.
judge didn't order him
Yes,
to.
he did.
You asked him to explain it, and he did.
We took a lunch break, and the judge ordered him to, during lunch, tell me where that money went,
Okay,
Mr. Broderick.
and he
And he
did,
came
didn't
back and did that.
Okay, and he explained where it was, and he explained and he showed where it had gone, and then it had come back, correct?
I guess.
Okay.
All right, covering her smug. They keep changing the camera views. It's making it tough for me to figure out where to sit myself.
You also testified that during the course of the divorce litigation that you appeared at several settlement conferences, but that there was only one conference where Judge Murphy ever talked to you, correct?
Yes.
And that Judge Murphy expressed that Dan was playing games and that he was very upset and ordered Jerry Berry to be there for that conference. That was your description of that.
The fifth one that I went to, yes.
Thank you,
Isn't it true,
Satori
Mrs.
Hasu.
Broderick, that there were at least three or four settlement conferences where you appeared before Judge Murphy and where Judge Murphy talked to you and talked to either Mr. Berry or Dan and tried to settle the case?
After the day that you just spoke about, where he called Mr. Barry and said, come over here, then we had other meetings with Judge Murphy. But these mandatory settlement conferences were not in front of Judge Murphy. I don't know who they were in front of.
What you indicated, or at least the impression that I got when you testified, is that you showed up for all these hearings and then you only got one settlement conference in front of Judge Murphy. There was only one time that you got to talk to Judge Murphy and attempt to settle the case.
That was the last mandatory settlement conference. Judge Murphy took temporary control of the case. And that's when he, on that day, I believe, nominated this Dr. DIETZ person to, are we in May of 88?
He
You're not
had
allowed
at
to
least
ask
3 or
questions.
4 different meetings with you where he was
After that day.
Okay, well, you didn't mention anything about those other settlement
that
conferences with Judge Murphy.
Well, it wasn't really named that. Judge Murphy appointed Dr. DIETZ to talk to all of these psychiatrists or psychologists about the case, about the custody. Judge Murphy said it was his opinion that if we could just settle the custody, everything else would fall into place. And that sounded good to me. So he appointed this, do you want me to go on? He appointed this man named Dr. DIETZ, who I never heard of, who was supposed to talk to all the psychologists
Dr.
involved
DIETZ.
in this case, not talk to Dan Broderick or Betty Broderick or the children. No principals.
Dr. DIETZ testifies as part of the state's rebuttal. So if you're wondering what this matters, pay attention to it, because he's going to be called as, I think, one of the last witnesses, if not the last witness in this case.
Okay, stop for a second. did you not have settlement, at least 3 or 4 settlement conferences attempting to settle not the child custody issue, but also the finances with Judge Murphy, where he was attempting to get that settled? And Dan Broderick was there,
No.
and or his attorney was there.
No, when Judge Murphy took that last mandatory settlement conference, then Judge Murphy very kindly, more as a person than a judge, thought he'd do the children thing. But I don't remember Judge Murphy having anything to do with any money. And we
You don't
worked that
recall-
summer. We worked that summer, and I went right back into Judge Murphy just before school started in September '88. And I was devastated about what happened with Dr. Dess.
You
And I
don't
think
re-
that's the end of
okay.
Murphy.
We'll talk about Dr. Dess in a minute, but you don't recall attempting to settle the financial situation with Judge Murphy at all, telling him that you wanted $1 million cash, you wanted $25,000 a month, no credits for any property that had already been dispersed. That was what you wanted.
That's an offer that Trisha Smith put in writing in early '87 and sent to Dan's attorneys.
I'm
So I
asking-
would have stuck to that offer.
Okay.
But-
And you weren't willing to compromise at all. were
Judge
you?
Murphy was not involved in the money at all. At that, we didn't get to that. We were doing the children with Judge Murphy. And then he said we'd get to the money after we did the children.
You complained about the fact that the court was sealed during the course of the divorce, that the courtrooms were closed, that the file was sealed.
Yes.
It is true, is it not, that at the first hearing that you had was in December of '86 when Mr. Hargraves was representing you.
Mhm.
The hearing was not sealed and the file was not sealed. The only thing that was requested to be sealed were the financial documents of Dan Broderick.
No, I think Mr. Hargreaves agreed, and I was protesting to seal everything on that day, the first time I appeared in court in '86.
Isn't it true that Mr. Berry, who was representing Dan Broderick at the time, requested to seal the file, and Mr. Hargraves, you indicated no, you didn't want to. Mr. Hargraves indicated no. Mr. Berry said, all I'm talking about are the financial documents. Obviously, Mr. Broderick had a lot of money. Obviously, he was filing declarations that indicated he had a lot of money. He had concerns about other people knowing how much money he had. The only request was to seal the financial documents, and the only agreement that Mr. Hargraves made was to seal the financial documents at that hearing.
I think he agreed to seal everything, or that was my understanding, that he sealed everything. If
That
you-
hearing was open. Anybody could have.
It was
come
the
in.
very first one, so we had not agreed to seal it yet, and right away in that first hearing, we sealed it. Yes, no one was present. I never had anyone I wanted to bring with me. I was just opposing it on the principle of the matter.
Well, you complained a lot that everything that was happening during the course of this divorce was behind closed doors in sealed
Yeah.
courtrooms.
It became a problem like that.
Okay, was there anything that was happening behind closed doors or in sealed courtrooms in December of 1986 that you want to tell us about?
No, but I didn't think
No.
there was any reason to have it all sealed up.
The contempt hearings were not sealed either. They were open, weren't they? You made a motion to open the hearings and the judge ruled that they were open.
Gee, I don't know. Would I have an attorney that did that? Because I didn't do that. It was my understanding from the very first court thing when Hargreaves agreed to seal everything, that everything was sealed. And we never got it unsealed officially. A judge did allow my friend Ronnie Brown to come with me to several things for moral support, but that was in a violation of it being a technically sealed courtroom.
Good to see you, Mandy. Yeah, Betty looks bored. She looks like just annoyed by having to be here.
Certainly.
Judge pours himself a little more G&T. You can see a lot of that one juror
If
nearest.
you recall,
I'm
Trisha
covering
Smith
her.
requesting at the,
Good for me. The little graphic I have with the Betty Broderick in the corner here is covering up a juror, basically just leaned into the camera shot. But your identity will be forever protected by Dan D.
April hearing in 1987, that the hearing be held open and the court ordering that the hearing would be open.
Every time when I changed attorneys after Hargreaves, we argued to open the court every single time, but I don't know that it ever was.
Does it indicate that the court indicates on page 7 of this hearing, 70, excuse me, this hearing is open today?
Yes.
Mandy, it's a little of both because we're taking longer talking about it. And at the same time, we're losing all of those recess breaks. We're losing all of the, we're going to go into sidebar, we'll come back. So I don't know how much of it, we might be watching it almost in real time based off of what we're adding through chat and taking away through not having to wait through those recesses.
The first contempt hearing in 88.
I thought it was 21 days because when I looked at this video compilation, it's 21 different videos. As we've been watching it, I've noticed that there's some outfits that carry over day to day, so it's not a straight day to day archive of the trial as much as it's a court TV archive of what they were broadcasting. So their broadcast days may have been, we're going to get at least 4 hours of footage before we call that a day of coverage. So if 2 days were needed to make 4 hours of coverage, that's what it took. But yeah, our streams are going generally 5 to 6 hours for every 4 hours that was in the original footage. So. But it looks like it was about a 4-week case, a 3 or 4. I can
The
look that
settlement
part up.
conferences that you had with Judge Murphy, those were also open. People could come in and listen to what was going on. There wasn't anything happening behind sealed, closed doors, was there?
Well, see, like that hearing there was a contempt hearing in Judge Joseph's courtroom in this courthouse.
Excuse me, Mr. Broderick, I'm asking about the settlement conferences now. Those weren't closed. In fact, you had, as you indicated, you had Ronnie Brown, your friend there. In fact, you had a man from Halt there. Do you remember a man from Halt sitting in on one of your settlement conferences and getting up in the middle of it and saying, there's nothing wrong going on here, and walking out?
No, the man never said that, but I do remember a conversation with the judge asking who the man was because it was a closed hearing and he wanted to know who he was. And when he found out who he was, he didn't throw him out.
At the divorce trial, there was a request to seal the hearing. At the time of the trial, there was a request by Mr. Broderick.
Every time we
close
appeared
the-
in court, they wanted it sealed and I fought it every time.
And the request was based on several letters by the children's psychologist, letters written by Dr. Roth, by Dr. Sparta, by Dr. Audrey Taryn Phillips. Those were letters written by the children's psychologists who were requesting that the hearing be closed because of your conduct and how they felt that was the public dissemination of that would be harmful to the children.
Those letters were written after the argument was started by a newspaper in that courtroom, not by me, that they wanted this proceeding open. So all these lawyers came from other law firms and things and had this big fight about opening the courtroom.
Jodi Arias, I remember her as I think it was in the interrogation, but no, all of my boyfriends are still alive, or none of my boyfriends are dead. Like, what do you mean none of my boyfriends are dead? That's a weird thing about one of your boyfriends, but so I do have some information about the trial. The trial was approximately 3 weeks in length. Testimony concluded in December. The trial started at the end of October. Verdict was December 10th. It almost mirrors the Sarah Boone timeline. I think Sarah Boone's case started in October, was finished in time for a December verdict. And the verdict took a lot longer because the Sarah verdict came in like 4 hours. But then the sentencing waited until November. Yeah. But yeah, about a 3-week trial. So that's what they scheduled for Sarah. I think Sarah finished a week early, but they scheduled extra time for it because there was possibility she'd be pro se when it started.
I'm not talking about the lawyers. I'm talking about the psychologists who were requesting.
Yeah,
5 days.
That sounds
5 days for the Sarah Boone trial. It seems longer just from having watched so much of it, but really 5 days.
those letters were written as a response to that legal action brought by a newspaper, not by me, although I was in favor of having it open. And the dates on those letters should be late 88, early 89, during the trial.
Hour and a half for the Sarah verdict. It was that quick.
me just ask you if these are the letters that you're referring to. And then I have marked as People's 101. A series of 3 letters.
I think it's hilarious that it was Hurricane Milton.
As 101.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so marked.
Hurricane Milton goes and delays the Sarah trial, and where's James Owens and his team from? Milton, Florida. Judge, please, I think if I could just get a delay, I'd be able to really help out Ms. Boone. No, it will take an act of God, Mr. Owens.
The record, one written by Ruth Roth, one written by Steve Sparta, and one written by Audrey Tarrant Phillips. Are these the letters that you're referring to?
I don't see a date on this one. See, I wouldn't have known these letters came to court. If these are the ones they used in court during the trial, these were letters written earlier when Dan threatened to sue the newspaper for going public with this story.
These are
In
letters
July
that were
of
written in
88.
July of '88, where there was an indication that the only person who would,
I have an objection. There's witnesses that can follow through reading documents.
Sustained. Documents speak for themselves, best evidence.
was there anything that went on during any of these hearings that you feel that everybody needs to know?
I think the nature of what went on here, by 1989, people needed to know.
Well, and there are transcripts of all these hearings. There are transcripts of the contempt hearings. There are transcripts of the divorce trial. You had
But nobody
friends.
could get the transcripts.
Well, we've got them right here. Is there anything that's happened?
They're sealed.
No.
They're not sealed. They're not
They've
sealed
always
for
been
purposes
sealed
of this
before.
trial.
Okay, just,
For this trial,
This
Your Honor,
trial.
this is very misleading, and the district attorney knows it is.
oh, just no speeches in front of the jury if you want
What, may we
to.
approach the bench?
Come on.
Mike,
Pull up.
Wait for my brains.
Wait for the brains. He's very
Go ahead.
deferential to his court reporter. It's good for the judge.
my question to you relates to your very constant and very loudly made claim during the course of this that things were happening in sealed courtrooms behind closed doors. And my question to you is there anything that happened in any of these hearings that you want people to know about?
I just thought it was a perversion of the legal system, of the what we believed is the justice system, that Dan would use the courts against me and keep me and the children from getting any sort of a fair settlement in a divorce that he wanted
But there
since
wasn't,
1985.
but there wasn't anything that you're suggesting that was, that we don't, that you want people to know that we're hiding from them. That's all sealed up, right?
It's all been all sealed up.
Okay.
Only you could get it because of the criminal thing. No one,
Mm.
insofar
But what
as
was going on
I'll
in
post
sealed
Suma's link.
courtrooms that upsets you so much?
that I was being charged $10,000 for dropping dogs off, and that I was being kept from my children, and that there was no settlement, and there never would be a settlement, according to Dan's words. This will never be over until one of us is gone. In a public newspaper. That's not the way it's supposed to work. I'm supposed to get equal protection under the laws, and so are the children.
Dan's words were not that. Dan's words were, you want me, you want my money, you want my death or my ruination in this community. You want me destroyed and over and done with, and unless and until that happens, you are not going to be happy. That's what his words were to you.
I've never heard those words of Dan. All I know is what was printed in the newspaper is that the divorce trial would settle some minor differences, but Dan's words, this will never be over until one of us is gone. And that was a threat to me.
You cross-examined him at the divorce trial, correct?
Yes.
You had him on the stand for several days, as a matter of fact, correct?
I don't
Asking him
remember if it
questions.
was several days, but
And you don't recall him saying to you, your anger is the driving force, your anger and your hatred is the driving force of this proceeding and of the harm that our children have suffered?
that's what Dan would have liked everyone to believe. My driving force was to get a settlement and get him out of my life and have a life. And he was not going to give me that
When he
under
said
any
to you,
circumstances. That's why we were in court, trying to force him to a settlement.
and when he said to you, you want me, you want my ruination in this community, you want my death, you want me destroyed and over and done with, and unless and until that happens, you are not going to be happy. You didn't deny that, did you? You
I
didn't
laughed.
say,
The court reporter could not take down my laughter. He was such an arrogant jerk. He wanted people to think that. Those are his attorney words. And that's not true at all. He knew I just wanted a settlement like I should have had and like the children should have had. And to be over and done with him, he was obviously a fool.
Your Honor, perhaps this would be an appropriate time for.
All right, we'll take our afternoon recess at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, I should tell you I have another matter set at 8:45 tomorrow, which should only take 5 or 10 minutes at the most, so I don't anticipate any delay in starting this case. But if we are a few minutes late, please be patient with me. Please remember the admonition not to discuss the case among yourselves, nor allow anyone else to discuss it with you, nor form any opinions until it's finally submitted to you. See you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Have a nice evening.
Oh, new fashion. Here we go. The new day. Let's get some new outfits.
Yesterday, Mrs. Broderick, you acknowledged that
Yes.
for Christmas of 1988 that you had the children the first week of Christmas through Christmas morning, correct?
Yes, I think so.
And you indicated that that had
Cameraman has a different filter. It's a darker lens. They have a TV. They've got the AV unit. This was my favorite thing to see if I was in elementary school, and this was getting wheeled in to start a day. You got the trolley. You've got the VHS. Prosecutor in a bit of a, it looks like it's almost a heavier coat, like a thick material kind of, but fuzzy. A bit of a patterned stripe, matching the court reporter in shades of, the court reporter almost looks like the design. Yeah, the two of them together are the design on Betty's sweater. So if my theory's correct and the prosecutor's matching outfits with the court reporter, they decided to dress as Betty's sweater today because Betty doesn't get to change.
being in trial had interfered with your ability to be with the children. Isn't it true that the divorce trial did not start until after Christmas? The divorce trial did not start until December 27th and was the week between Christmas and New Year's.
I'm not sure when I had the children before Christmas, but I know that I was totally involved with getting together an entire trial from these boxes and boxes of things that I had, and we didn't have a Christmas to speak of because of that.
Isn't it true that the divorce trial, though, was not until after Christmas and that you had
I
the
thought it was
children?
the day after Christmas, but if you say it's the 27th, it was right after Christmas, yeah.
And you had the
Well,
children for the week before Christmas,
hello,
up
Mom.
through Christmas Day.
I'm not sure of that. I don't remember ever having them on Christmas Day because I don't remember.
Going to tell you guys what I do for my cat. The cat feels ignored because I make it a habit to warm up the cat's wet food. So instead of just feeding a can of wet food, I'll let it run under hot water for anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, just long enough that it feels like a fresh kill for the cat. It's all warmed up and you can add a little bit of more water to it and it's like a nice soup. There's some that I get that are called little soups, or just by Friskies. It's like a bit of a cream of mushroom, but cream of chicken, cream of shrimp. And anyway, my cat quite likes having these warmed up. Mum thinks that I am spoiling the cat, that it's a ridiculous step. I think it's just running a little water, but we'll have a poll on that if there's enough interest.
Going to church, and we definitely would have gone to church if I had the children on Christmas.
Did you have them the full week before Christmas? And any?
I don't
do you
recall.
that?
I don't recall.
The cat gets excited. I think it's the highlight of the cat's day. The cat thinks I can hunt. It probably thinks that I just killed it and brought it, my fresh kill. Giving me all kinds of credit for human. Without even claws in
Would
my
it
hands.
refresh your recollection to take a look at a diary entry dated 1988?
Yes, I was going to suggest that might remind me. Boys here at first week of vacation. Movies, etc.
Does that refresh your recollection about the fact that you had them for the first week of Christmas vacation?
Right, that's what it says there.
And with respect to your indication that it was your desire to keep the divorce and your problems private, that you didn't like sharing those things with other people, it is true that this manuscript or this book that you wrote, that you did share that book with other people. You showed that book to other people, correct?
Yes, it wasn't an effort to keep anything private or secret. It was just a different level of speaking to people. It was not keeping anything secret.
That book described your feelings about your marriage from day one, from when you'd met Dan Broderick, all of the things that you felt about the marriage leading up to the separation, all the way through the representation of your attorneys. It was an accumulation of all of those things. Is that not?
I haven't read it in a real long time, maybe since I wrote. I haven't read it in a long time. I know it was that thing that I wrote on the ski trip because I was going to court on the contempts, and I thought I was going to kill myself, and I wanted the kids to know what happened because nobody was knowing what happened. Only Dan's version of what happened.
And you described your version of everything that happened, all of the details of that, correct?
From when we were married and when the kids were little and the moves and things like that, right? Not just the divorce.
And you showed people that book. For example, you showed the principal of Francis Parker that book one day. You gave it to him.
I didn't show it to him one day. He asked me if he heard about it. He asked me if he could see it, and I didn't have it with me when he asked me for it. And so I said I'd get it, and I went home. Several days later, I gave it to him.
Well, how
But he
would he
asked
have
for
heard
it.
of that?
I don't know exactly how he heard of it.
And he specifically asked you if he could see it, and
But
you
no.
went home and got it to show it to him.
Yeah, no one else at Francis Parker had ever seen it, and I don't know how he heard about it.
With respect to your claim of that Dan attempted to serve you the divorce papers while you were at this bishop's luncheon, a luncheon for the bishop's school, it is true that you were never served with any divorce papers or any papers of any sort at the bishop's luncheons, correct?
Right. The note said attempted service at the bishop's luncheon, but
It is true
they
that
didn't
you were
find me.
never served
That's right.
at the bishop's
That's
luncheon.
they couldn't find me, I
And
guess.
Today's Betty Broderick video is sponsored to you by Friskies with Shrimp, Little Soups for Cats. Friskies with Shrimp, Little Soups for Cats. If you want to send me a crate of those for my cat sanctuary, I would appreciate it, Friskies. I just did a free ad for you. Come on, help me out. Friskies, Little Soups for Cats. Warm them up.
obviously, you were there at the bishop's luncheon, correct?
Right, and I just surmised that they couldn't find me because there were so many women.
But you also know that Dan had strenuously denied that to you, that he had never attempted to serve you at Bishop's,
No, he never
that he
denied
didn't
it.
even know that you were there.
He couldn't deny it. I had it in his own handwriting, and that's what it said, attempted service at the bishop's luncheon. He never denied it.
But that was his list of things that were the claims that you had been making over the years that he was rebutting at the time of the divorce trial. He said he had no idea you were even at that bishop's luncheon. He didn't follow your whereabouts.
I don't know
Can you
what
testify
lies
to
he
that?
said at the divorce trial, among all the others, but we had in his handwriting his schedule of what I did on this day and what I did on that day, and on a certain day it said attempted service at the bishop's luncheon. That's all I know. So he couldn't have denied it because it was his handwriting.
You testified that you were upset about the fact that the divorce file had been lost or disappeared.
That's what I was told.
And have you admitted to anyone that you were the one that took the divorce file?
I would have no way of taking the divorce file. Of course not.
Well, you did check the divorce file out on several occasions, didn't you? You went down to the clerk's office and you checked it out.
In 1985, when I was sent there by Mr. Jaffe, when I wrote on it, was the only time I can recall going down and seeing the file. And it upset me very much, and that's when I wrote on it. But I don't remember seeing the file again until Mr. Mond was on the case in 1989.
Did you not testify that there were at least two different occasions when you checked out the file and when you wrote on the file?
They may have been back-to-back days right against each other, but I just remember that Mr. Jaffe sent me down there to try and tell him what was in the file, and I wrote in the file, but I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 days in a row.
You went and you checked out the file, right? You had to check out the file from the clerk's office and you had to take it somewhere and sit down and look at it,
I don't
right?
think you're allowed to take them anywhere.
Well, where did you go in order to write on the
In
court
this
file?
building, there's a counter with people behind it, and you tell them your name and your case number, and they bring it to you, and I believe you have to stay in that room, which has a little counter like this where you stand up and can look at the file, and you bring it back. If you're allowed to remove them, I never knew that.
Okay, well, you did obviously take it somewhere so that you could write on the file, which you knew you were not allowed to do. You knew you weren't allowed to take a court file and write all over the court file. There were court documents, correct?
I didn't know for a fact you weren't allowed to do that, but I did it anyway because there were such lies and fabrications in there. All those things that you said earlier that I did that I never did, I didn't want those in any court file because they weren't true.
And so you checked out the court file and you at least took it somewhere.
No,
so
I
that-
took it to the counter with it.
somewhere in that room. That's a big room. There's lots of people in there. There's places to sit down so that you could write on the file. And you did write on the file, right?
I don't think there are places to sit down. I remember standing at a counter,
Okay.
and I corrected the file, is what I call it.
Yeah, you indicated you corrected the file like a school teacher would correct a file. Do you think that a school teacher would correct a file by writing bullshit all over it?
It was the manner that I corrected it. I didn't write in prose. I circled things and put arrows and said
Bullshit.
what was wrong with them.
That they were bullshit.
That's what was wrong with that statement.
It was bullshit.
Yeah, marked as People's Exhibit 102.
Bring out the bullshit
A
papers.
series of court documents.
Betty's looking forward to
So
seeing
you
these.
keep
Look at
your
that smile.
Somewhere.
If you could just identify the handwriting on this page, for example, where there are circles in the writing bullshit? Is that your handwriting? Ms. Broderick, if you could just look at the first page for me, please.
I don't know because it's so scribbled. That's not my usual handwriting. That's
I have to
unintelligible.
examine it. I'm not sure
So
if it's me.
I don't know that that's exactly my handwriting.
So are you saying
If I
someone else
find-
checked, excuse me, are you saying someone else checked out this file and wrote bullshit all over
Your
it?
Honor, objection.
No.
Recommended that-
Sustained.
Well, let's start with this page, please, ma'am. Did you write bullshit on that page?
I cannot identify that one particular word right now as my handwriting.
Are you saying you didn't do it?
No, I
Are
was
you
looking
admitting
for,
that you did?
you just asked me if that was my handwriting.
Overruled. You can answer that.
You asked me if that was my handwriting, and I said, I can't tell you that that one word is my handwriting. But
Okay,
if
my
I
next question then is, did you write that?
don't know if I wrote that particular one word. I
She
told you I
knows
went
she
down
did
there and I
it.
corrected the file.
Are you suggesting that someone else wrote bullshit
Your
on
Honor,
it?
No.
that's argument.
Sustained as to that question.
If you could take a look at this page and please just answer the question, do you recognize that as your handwriting?
Yes, this is definitely my handwriting.
And on this next document, if you could take a
Yes.
look at each of those pages and identify those as your handwriting.
That is my handwriting, yes.
On each of those pages.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, but you can see it doesn't compare very well with that one word.
You indicated that you were upset because the file basically showed only Dan's side of the story, that he had filed declarations. He'd filed declarations when he'd attempted to get the restraining order, when he attempted to get the Elizor order, explaining what had happened and the things that you had done and the things that he was going through. And that you were upset because it just showed his side of the story and it didn't show your side of the story. And that's why you wrote all over this file, correct?
Right, most files are one side and then the other side response. Remember this response that nobody ever filed for me? I had not one sheet of paper in that file until late 1986 when I hired Mr. Hargreaves to file a one-page response. But I had nothing, no, I don't know what you would call it legally, no counterbalance to all of these allegations and
So-
things of Dan Broderick. There was nothing of mine in there.
Obviously, it wasn't to Dan Broderick's effort to steal the file and take away his side of the story.
Are we talking about 1985 or 1987 or not? I don't think the
You're talking
file
about the file
disappeared.
disappearing and the suggestion being that Dan Broderick stole that file. If the file was filled with his side of the story, what was the benefit to him to steal that file?
Your Honor, I have an objection, Your Honor. There's no implications as to who stole the file.
There isn't?
No, the
Excuse
file,
me. The file was just missing, as I understand it, and was later found.
Are you suggesting that Dan Broderick had anything to do with the fact that the file was missing?
I don't know, but I know he didn't like that I corrected things. And as the
Well,
years
that
went by,
Excuse me. Are you
Corrected things.
suggesting that he had anything to do with that file disappearing?
I wouldn't know. I have no idea.
So you're not suggesting that then? You're suggesting that it's possible that the file, since it was transferred from downtown to Claremont to Vista to the family court building, somewhere along the line, it got lost.
I thought it was coincidental that it got lost when national TV shows came to town looking for it. I thought that was a big coincidence.
And did you think that that would have been to your benefit?
There are no
for them to
big
see the
coincidences
file
and small
with his side of the
coincidences, only
story in there and with
coincidences.
your writings all over it, including the writings that you've just identified?
By the time it disappeared, there were lots of these contempts, et cetera, in that file, and it would have looked real bad for Dan Broderick of what
And
was
the
happening.
and the contempts that listed all of the phone messages that you were leaving and the language that you were using and all of the allegations of the things that you were doing, you're suggesting that that would have looked bad for Dan Broderick for people to have seen those things.
Right.
Okay.
Cheers, Mandy. Hope that works for you. I was babysitting my daughter's cats while she was in Mexico and got them so hooked
When you
on
went to
soups that she
trial
had to wean them
on
off
the
of
case,
it.
the actual trial in December of
very happy.
1988 in front of Judge Howitt, you testified that as you came into the courtroom every morning, that you saw Dan and his attorney, Jerry Berry, and Judge Howitt sitting in Judge Howitt's chambers, drinking coffee and chatting together, correct?
Those are not my words. If you'd like me to repeat what I said, I'll repeat what I said.
What did
I
you
didn't
say?
say that. Well, I would have to come in the public entrance that would be locked until a certain time when the public was allowed in, and when
She bumped the front door with her car just wanted to talk, and she just corrected the papers. Not I wrote bullshit on the papers, not I smashed my car through the front door, not I shot them both while they scrambled from the bed. Bit minimizing, Betty. A little bit minimizing.
I'd come in, there'd be no one in the courtroom, and then this door would open. And once when that door opened, I saw Judge Ashworth back there talking to Judge Howard. And I saw Judge Howard and Jerry Barry and Dan Broderick enter through there. And then several other times during recesses and stuff, Gerald Barry would go into the judge's office and talk to the judge and stuff.
But you said that you saw them all together drinking coffee.
Dan doesn't drink coffee. I never said that. No, I didn't see anybody drinking coffee. I saw them in the judge's chambers chatting and being very friendly before they came through that door for a proceeding when I had to come through the door like every other citizen.
You didn't suggest at all that they were back in the judge's chambers drinking coffee and chatting together?
Maybe somebody had a coffee cup, but Dan Broderick wouldn't have ever been drinking coffee. I may have said that. Socializing is what I meant.
Okay, it was what you meant, but that's not what you said, was it? What you said is that they were all back there drinking coffee.
Maybe if someone had a coffee cup in their hand like they did, I would have thought someone was drinking coffee, but they weren't sitting down. I couldn't have seen into the office.
Well,
through
that's
that
the
door.
point. When you were in the courtroom, there was no way you could have seen what was going on in Judge Howard's chambers. You couldn't see his judge's chambers from the courtroom, could
Well,
you?
In the family court, you can.
In the family courtroom, you can. If you're in the courtroom, you can see down the hallway to where his chambers was.
It wasn't down the hall. It was right there.
Okay, and you looked somehow through the door into Judge Howard's chambers, right?
When one
behind
of the marshals or something was opening the door and waiting for somebody to come in, I saw them in the judge's office. Yes.
You saw who in the judge's?
Gerald Barry, Dan Broderick, and the judge.
And Judge Ashworth? All four of them together, you said?
No, I saw Judge Ashworth talking to Judge Howard once, just before we started the court.
Okay, Judge Ashworth was a judge, right? He was a judge in that courtroom. Judge Howard.
He was also the attorney on this case. So
right.
I
And he
thought
was a judge. He was a family court judge, and Judge Howard was a family court judge. And you're saying that on one occasion you saw them in the hallway talking. Is that correct?
right outside the courtroom where I was sitting, yes.
Okay. Did you hear what they were saying?
No.
Okay. Did you have any idea whether they were talking about your case or whether they were just saying, "Good morning, how are you this morning, Judge?"
Well, Judge Howard said on the record that the other judges were asking him how it was going in there every day, meaning Judge Murphy and Judge Ashworth. And my brain kind of said, it's none of their business what's going on in here. This wasn't a group effort.
Didn't Judge Howard tell you that he had no contact, no knowledge of Dan Broderick? He didn't know him personally. He hadn't had any contact with him. He didn't know anything about what was going on, and that's why he was chosen to take care of that case.
Right.
Fine. Always quiet when I have absolutely nothing to chime in with. Every time I have stuff to chime in with, there's nobody. No
There were
chances.
2 psychiatrists or psychologists who testified at the trial regarding the child custody question, correct? There was Dr. Dess, who had been appointed by the court. There was Dr. Nelson, who you had hired to testify on your behalf.
Dr. Dess at that time was not appointed by the court.
Didn't you just
To
testify
testify.
yesterday that Judge Murphy was the one who had gotten involved and decided to ask Dr. Dess to talk to all of the psychologists and make a
I
recommendation?
think that was 1987 or 8. Yes, but at the divorce trial, he was hired by Dan and Mr. Barry to be their expert witness. He was not appointed by the court to be an expert witness.
When you were talking about Judge Murphy and the settlement conferences that you had, that had to have been in 1988, shortly before the trial, when he told you he was appointing
Correct.
Dr. Dess to make a recommendation. Dr. Dess was not hired by Dan Broderick. He was appointed by the court to make a recommendation.
At that time by Judge Murphy, Thomas Murphy.
And you're
But in
saying
the
after
divorce trial, he was hired by, it's a totally different situation. He was hired and paid by Dan Broderick and Mr. Barry to be their expert against me in the trial.
Well, when Judge
can't-
Murphy had asked Dr. Dess to make a recommendation, to get involved, to be appointed by the court, to essentially decide what's right for the kids, and to talk to all of the psychologists who had dealt with the kids, he did that. He talked to the psychologists, and he made a recommendation to the court that you became aware of before the trial, correct?
He didn't do what he was supposed to do. But
Did he
he
make
made
a
a recommendation
recommendation?
over the phone that said nothing more than custody to remain the same.
you were aware that he was making a recommendation that the custody should remain with Dan and that you should not, in fact, you should not even have visitation with the children unless it was supervised. That was his recommendation, correct?
No, his recommendation was just exactly what I told you over the phone, written on a pink piece of paper, where he also gave recommendations for 2 other cases. And his only words were custody to remain the same. He was appointed to talk to all of these psychiatrists and psychologists. He did not do that. And I didn't find out until the divorce trial what happened.
Mrs. Broderick, he did make let's just go back to the fact that he did make a recommendation then before the trial, as far as you were aware, that custody should remain with Dan Broderick based on his discussions with the psychologist that he had talked to.
Before
correct?
the trial?
Before the trial.
Yes. And
you were very angry about that. Before you had some contact with him, you had talked with him, you had been very pleasant with him until you found out what his recommendation was going to be. And then you wrote him an extremely angry letter, correct?
no, that's not correct. Would you like to hear the real story?
Did you write
Total
him an
O.J.
angry
Simpson.
letter after you received
Would you like to know what really happened?
knowledge of what his recommendation was?
Absolutely. I was furious. He never contacted the only psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever, that represented me and my side of the story. He never contacted him, and he was court ordered to contact him.
He was ordered
Was
to
my belief.
contact the psychologist who had dealt with the children.
No, he was court ordered to contact all the psychiatrists and psychologists that had anything to do with this case, and we composed a list of those people in the court with Judge Murphy.
I have marked on yours because 103, the letter dated September 25th, 1988.
So marked.
Little plug for the small town of Osoyoos, British
If you could
Columbia.
just identify this letter as a letter that you wrote to Dr. Dess.
Yes,
Okay. And that was written back in September of 1988, so it was clearly several months before the actual divorce trial.
it was after he didn't contact Dr. Nelson, and I was just furious because he was court ordered to contact Dr. Nelson.
Dr. Nelson testified at the divorce trial. He testified on your behalf, so nobody was hiding Dr. Nelson from the judge, right?
What are we doing here?
What are we doing
I
here?
object to the question is argumentative.
Sustained, it's also compound, just rephrase it.
Dr. Nelson did testify on your behalf at the divorce trial, correct?
Correct.
And Dr. Dess testified as appointed by the court at the time of the trial.
That is not correctly
Okay,
stated.
Dr. Dess
No.
testified.
Yes,
And Dr. Dess recommended that you not have custody and that you not have visitation unless it was supervised.
at the divorce trial
At the
or back
divorce
then?
trial.
I don't remember what he recommended. I thought he
There
should
was-
have been thrown out as not having the knowledge or the capability to make any decisions on this family. He never met Dan or me or any of the children, and he never spoke to anyone who ever met me.
He did speak to Dr. Sparta, who had dealt with all 4 of the children. He did speak to Dr. Roth, who had dealt with some of the children. He did speak to Audrey Tarrant Phillips, who had talked with the children. He did speak to Mary Ann Phillips, I believe was her name, who had talked to the children and make a recommendation based on after talking to those, correct?
No, that's not really correct either.
Okay. When you wrote him this letter after you found out that he was recommending against custody, you indicated you were extremely angry, correct?
He didn't do what he was court ordered to do, and I
My
didn't know
question
why.
was, when you wrote him this letter, you were obviously very angry, right?
That he didn't even attempt to reach Dr. Nelson. So how could he have come to any decision?
Dr. Nelson, the only child that Dr. Nelson had seen at that time for any period of time was Lee, correct?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
because
he
I
also-
couldn't get the boys to him. That's right.
And Dr. Dess had also talked to, I think her name was Marion Phillips, who had been treating Lee for quite a while, correct?
I'll tell you who Dr. Dess was not ordered to speak to, Linda Colkina or Gerald Barry.
Okay.
And he
Mrs.
spent a
Broderick,
lot of time talking to those 2 people that prejudiced him against me without him ever talking to me or anyone who has ever met or seen me.
So he obviously expressed an opinion that you didn't agree with, and you put on a psychologist to express the opposite opinion, to give your side of the story at the time of the trial as well. Both sides were presented to the court, correct?
Supposedly.
And in this letter you wrote to Dr. Dess, you said to him, Mr. Broderick did not become what he is because he was married to a whiny weakling of a wife. He knew what I could do for him. He knew I was a better, stronger person than he. He picked the right girl to marry, but he picked the wrong girl to fuck.
Yes,
Yes. And what did you mean by that?
I meant exactly what it says.
Well, what were you going to do about the fact that he picked the wrong girl to, in your
He wanted
words?
me to shrivel up and die and kill myself and not bother him about my children or about giving me any of my property or any of my money or any support.
And
Didn't
you had
want
no
me to
intention
bother
of doing
him.
that, did you? Because he picked the wrong girl to mess with, right?
I was not going to let him do that to me, no.
Okay.
The judge just sitting through it. The wrong girl to fuck. What's that mean?
In fact, you told Dr. Dess that you had always been the perfect mother and the perfect wife, the super fine wife. There had never been any better.
Super fine.
I always took orders well, and I did everything that Dan Broderick wanted me to do in the marriage and in the house and with the children, but I wasn't taking orders anymore.
You also indicated that you complained during the time of the trial that you were very sick, and you pleaded several times to take some days off, and the court refused. Isn't it true that the only time you mentioned anything to that effect was on December 29th, where you called in the morning, the session was put over until the afternoon, and when you showed up, the court asked, "Are you ready to go?" And you said, "Should the record reflect that I'm sick?" And the court said, "The record will reflect that you called this morning and indicated that you had a cold." You responded, "It's more like the chills. I have a sore throat and chills, but I'm anxious to get this over as quickly as possible, and so I'm here. Do you want to continue where we left off?" Answer, please. Is that not what happened with respect to your request of being sick?
That would have been one of the days, but there were 2 or 3 days, and I don't remember it was in the morning or the afternoon or anything, and all the records will reflect that I was sick on the different days if you look for it. Also, the children crashed a car during that trial. It was a circus.
It was true that at least on this particular day that the court was indicating that it asked you if you wanted to go forward, and you were the one that said you were anxious to
On
go
that
forward.
particular day, that's what that says, yes. But there were other days when I didn't think I could even appear.
You talked about a confrontation that you had with Dan Broderick sometime in 1988, in November of 1988, where you went over to his house. This was the last time that you'd confronted him. You went over to his house, and he was outside of the house gardening, and his first reaction was to tell you to leave. There was a restraining order. You basically threatened that he told you he'd call the police if you didn't leave. You told him, "Go ahead, I'm not leaving. I'm coming back until we settle this." And so basically he said, okay, he didn't call the police. He said, "Come back tomorrow and we'll talk tomorrow," correct?
Yeah, because I was telling him, go ahead and arrest me. I'm coming back, and I'm coming back, and I'm coming back, and I want this settled.
He threatened to call the police, and you basically called his bluff, and he said, "Go ahead, I'm coming back, I'm coming back." And so he backed up, correct?
No,
He
he said,
didn't call the police that day.
Thank you, Satori. Good to
Okay.
see
And you
you.
didn't have to threaten
We'll
him with
see
a
you on
gun
the
in
next
order
one.
to get him not to call the police that day, did you?
no, I had the cellular phone with me that if he did call the police, that I'd have friends that I could reach.
And he did talk to you the next day, didn't he?
No.
You came back and you did talk to him. In fact, that was the conversation that you described to Sylvia Cavins, where you talked to him and you threatened that if he didn't give you $1 million in cash, which is what you'd been asking for all along, that you were going to kill him.
Under
No.
alternate, that assumes facts. There's a mistake there.
Sustained.
Did Ms. Cavins not testify that you had told her you had made a threat to Dan Broderick that if he didn't pay you $1 million, you were going to kill him?
I don't know if she said that. I mean, if she said that, it never happened.
Did you ever say that to Sylvia Cavins?
No, of course not.
So she's making that up?
I don't know where Sylvia fits into this calendar at all right now. The day I went to see Dan was a Sunday, and he told me he'd get back to me during that week, and it was a work week. So I didn't go back over there at all. He was supposed to call me and come to my house, and we were supposed to work something out, and he didn't. And that's when I called the office and tried to get in touch with him, and he wouldn't take my calls.
And he never did call the police to report that you had violated the restraining order on that day, did he? Never did file a contempt action to report that you had violated the restraining order on that day.
No, he said we'd work something out.
One of the things that you had indicated over the years, in fact, that you said to Amy Wallace after these events, was that you felt that it was totally unfair because for 5 years, he, meaning Dan, had someone to sleep with, party with, have dinner with, and I'm standing there going, "What about me?" Do you you remember making that statement to Amy
Yes,
Wallace?
I couldn't get on with my life until I got a settlement.
What
in
about
any
Brad
regard.
Wright? Isn't it true that you had Brad Wright to party with and to have dinner with and to travel with and to sleep with?
I had friends, but I couldn't get on with my life until I had a settlement insofar as the children and myself and where I was going to live, the key things in my life.
Your comment was that he had someone to party with, have dinner with, and sleep with. And I'm standing here going, what about me? Isn't it true that you had Brad Wright to party with, which you did, to have dinner with, which you did, to travel with, which you did,
And I had
to
other
sleep with?
and I had other friends too. Yes,
Okay.
I had things, but that wasn't the definition of my life. I needed to build my life with my
We're
children.
talking about
We have just over an hour of raw footage today, hour and 10 minutes left in this video before it transitions towards the Dateline episode. So I'll be posting the link to the original video we're using, and if you want to watch that Dateline episode that is part of this particular video link, you'll just have to skip to the 4-hour mark, and then we'll be starting with a brand new video tomorrow.
that one particular statement.
Okay.
And you would never admit to people, you would never admit to your friends that you did have a relationship with Brad Wright, that you did have an intimate relationship with him.
Admit to who?
To people, if your friends asked you, they saw you going out with him and dating him and being with him, and your friends, lots of them were just curious and asked you about it, and you completely denied it.
I didn't ask any of my friends who they were sleeping with, and if any of them asked me, it was none of their business.
Well, but that's not what you said to them, was it? You didn't say, hey,
It's none of your business.
You said, for example, to Mary Williams, you said, no, I don't have a relationship with Brad Wright, he's gay.
What?
My
didn't say
boyfriend
that?
has a phone
Okay.
Never.
and a Porsche.
You did specifically deny having any intimate relationship with him, though. Rather than saying it's none of your business, you said, no, it didn't happen. It wasn't happening.
And Mary Williams was asking me how much money I got every month and everything at that same lunch. And I didn't have the guts to say, none of this is any of your business. So I didn't answer any of the questions about money or about Brad or about anything else. I was frankly aghast. It was none of her business. I was not a close friend of hers.
Well, when you were talking to Amy Wallace, when you wrote to her, we've already talked about, you wrote to her and called her willingly, week after week after week after these incidents occurred. She also asked you about your relationship with Brad Wright, and you specifically denied that you were intimate. I'm not the kind of person to be with someone and not be married, was your quote.
That's a true statement. I was never comfortable being in a relationship with someone I wasn't married to. I never had a relationship with anyone I wasn't married to. So I did not have the relationship
have
that
a
you want
relation-
people to think I had.
I'm not suggesting anything negative by the relationship, Mrs. Broderick. I'm just suggesting that you did have a full and complete and intimate relationship with Brad Wright, and you refused to acknowledge that to anyone. Because if you did, then people wouldn't feel quite so sorry for you anymore.
No, Brad and I are friends. We're friends, good friends, and that's it. And if anybody wants to read anything else into that, we're
Well-
not
Also-
getting married and all that stuff that
You
you
were
asked
also
Maria.
lovers, those are words.
Oh,
Occasionally.
oh no, this is one where I can even call you out, Betty, and I'm only recent to your case. But there were letters found in a storage locker written in 2003, so like 12 years after this. I don't think that the relationship ramped up after the murder, like it had to be involved before. But one of the lines was, if I had a dime for every time I thought of how much I loved you, I'd be a millionaire. Leave your wife, come sneak down to the prison for a conjugal visit with me, kind of. So Betty's, she should choose, like there's spots where she's like way too honest because she's reveling in reliving her, justice in the moment. And then there's other spots where she can't admit to just having, a relationship with a boyfriend that looked like Hermie the Drill from the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer cartoon.
And you specifically denied that when you were asked the question by Amy Wallace.
Your Honor, I'm going to.
That's an answer.
Argumentative, Your Honor.
And asked an answer sustained.
Well, when the children asked you about it, when Kim, for example, or Lee asked you, how come you're so mad that Dad has Linda when you have Brad?
Right.
Your response was, how can you equate the two? Brad doesn't support me.
It worked.
That's right. I absolutely flew off the handle when Kim Broderick said that to me.
It worked.
She's like, let's call this off. Let's call it even. Dan's got Linda. You've got Brad. See ya. I was like, wait a minute. Brad has not.
Okay, so sorry, I'm just going to interrupt because this is just side for people who love cats. Yeah, your cat's natural instinct, they get a lot of their moisture from killing animals. If you don't want them killing animals for moisture or dehydrating and just eating dry food, add a little bit of moisture, heat it up, they'll treat it like a treat. And then you can give them a little bit of treats, as a, hey, an hors d'oeuvre. You're going to eat, here's something to get your stomach warmed up so they know it's good. But Mandy's cats just ate real food, boy kitten, for the first time in months, just from a little warming. So now you'll have to do that forever. You can't stop doing that. And that's why my mom didn't want to do it. But I'm like, just do it while I'm gone. It's too much. Cat will eat if it's hungry. Anyway, if your cat's not eating, warm up the food. I think it's good for them. Little moisture, when they get their moisture with their food, better for the natural cat diet. They were never meant to be a pet. They're, got all of the genetics of a wild animal that hunts. So be their co-hunter. Give them warm food.
Nothing to do with anything.
Because Brad couldn't support you.
It had nothing to do with me needing a settlement of my life and my children. Brad had nothing to do with it. Dan Broderick having a girlfriend and me having Brad as a friend in my house had nothing to do with it.
All right, it did have something to do with you having some emotional support during that period of time.
You don't have to warm it up, but if they're not eating it, that's a great way to. It doesn't cost you anything to warm it up. You could run it on, maybe it costs you your water bill or electricity, but it's not much, right? You can just put it in a thing of hot water. If you've got a kettle, just dunk it in there. But a little bit of warmth, it's it's the least you can do. And when I'm not a super generous person, but if I have an opportunity to do the least and it'll matter to someone, I'm like, yes, the least I can do is exactly what I feel like doing. I did do the least and I did it for you.
One friend that I went to movies and went to dinner with and had a friend, but it was a casual relationship and he would come and go, and I did not dump all of these problems on him. It was none of his business either. My problems with my divorce and my children, why dump them on him?
When you were in jail shortly after these incidents, you wrote several letters to Brad. For example, I have lots of time to think and dream. I've had lots of time to smile and remember all the incredibly wonderful things we've done together. And then you went on to list them. That's a thank you note to Brad.
Aww.
It's been just the most.
This is Brad, her friend. No physical relationship, but most emotion she's had testifying in the last couple hours. But just her friend, Brad, just a good guy. Just not the kind of guy you would have done anything intimate with him and his Porsche and his cool cell phone. Yeah, completely unaffected. This is 17 seconds back, so you can watch the transition.
I have lots of time to think and dream. I've had lots of time to smile and remember all the incredibly wonderful things we've done together. And then you went on to.
So that's authentic. You can see it in her chin. That's a hard one to fake, right? Like even professional actors, you can kind of tell whether when they're channeling a real emotion or not. That got to her because it's her own words to her lover in her time of need. And yeah.
List them.
That's a thank you note to Brad, who's been just the most wonderful person in the whole world through so much shit. You can't believe it. And he's still a good, wonderful, that's a formal thank you note. Thank you and thank God you're.
Just a professional thank you. I don't know what you're reading into it. It's not like we ever had physical relations. That's a wild 30 seconds. Go back one more time. I haven't gone back too much tonight. We're ahead of schedule. So 2:53:03, and we are rewinding from 2:53:31. So 30 seconds of emotional roller coaster.
I have lots of time to think and dream. I've had lots of time to smile and remember all the incredibly wonderful things we've done together. And then you went on to list them.
That's a thank you note to Brad, who's been just the most wonderful person in the whole world through so much shit. You can't believe it. And he's still a good, wonderful, that's a formal thank you note. Thank you and thank God you're a wonderful person.
Your Honor, perhaps it'd be appropriate for the witness to compose herself.
Your Honor.
There, I'm composed.
You okay?
Yes.
There, I'm composed. Oh, Betty, if there's anything that she takes more offense to than an objection, it's to the prosecutor saying that she needs a second to get her shit together. Oh, my shit's together, Miss Wells. Fuck, she's very entertaining. She's Sarah-ish. She's Sarah adjacent.
Your Honor.
There, I'm composed.
You okay?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
And the whole world through so much shit, you can't believe it. And he's still a good, wonderful, that's a formal thank you note. Thank you and thank God you're a wonderful person.
Your Honor, perhaps it'd be appropriate for the witness to compose herself.
Your Honor.
There, I'm composed.
You okay?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
A little peek at the jury.
Thanks, Mary.
You call her Mary? I think she said thanks, Mary. Like they've come on such good terms. 253.56.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Mary. Mary's the court reporter. She had to interpret me saying, ah. We're good friends now. I've been here for 3 days. I'm wearing the same clothes every day. We marry our friends.
Dan and Linda did get married in April of 1989, correct?
Correct.
And you were aware of the impending marriage for some period of time.
Or it seems like practically a year, yes.
And you were very interested in the details of the marriage. You were,
I did not know any details of the marriage except that there were chocolate-covered strawberries. As Rhett told me, I didn't know any details of the marriage.
you didn't ask the children about the details of the marriage. You
The children
ask
didn't know either.
The housekeepers. Did you talk to Helen Picard about being upset, about the type of dress that Linda was wearing, that you had heard she was wearing a strapless wedding dress?
I have
and thought that was
I had
totally inappropriate?
no idea what kind of dress Linda was wearing, and why would Helen Picard had no idea. Helen Picard was not friends of Dan or Linda or.
I'm getting a lot of Seinfeld references in here, but the strapless dress totally reminds me of Kramer getting invited to a ball, and George wanted to go with a girl that would wear a strapless dress so that he could make this grand entrance. And somehow the back of Kramer's tuxedo rips off as he's spinning. So now he's got the strapless back. It was quite an entrance they made nonetheless.
Really even mine.
My
I had
question,
no-
though, was, did you tell Helen Picard
No.
that Linda was wearing a strapless wedding dress and that you thought that was real tacky and classless?
Nobody ever told me that, and that is not even the truth. I don't think she did wear a strapless wedding dress.
And so you would have never said anything like that to Helen Picard?
Absolutely not. And there's not even anything close to that about the wedding dress or details of the wedding. Helen Picard is lying through her teeth about everything.
Just like Gail Forbes is too, right?
Unfortunately, not about all the things. Gail Forbes and I were friends, and she did live close to me. But unfortunately, she's making up a lot of things to try and get me convicted, yes.
Prior to the wedding, you had made direct threats to kill Dan Broderick. You had told, for example, Sylvia Cavins that you were practicing with your gun and that you were going to put 3-4 bullets through his head.
That never happened. I never said that to anybody. I was not practicing with my gun. That's a fact. And I didn't say those things to Sylvia Cavins.
So Sylvia
And she's
Cavins,
changed it several times.
she's never changed the fact that you told her before the wedding that you were going to shoot Dan Broderick in the head at the wedding, has she? She said that from the very beginning, that you made the statement that you were going to shoot Dan Broderick through the head. In fact, that's how Dan started to become concerned about the fact that you had bought a gun and that you were making threats to kill him.
When Dan and Linda announced,
Sustained.
Did you ever tell Sylvia Cavins that you were going
That's
to
Brad.
shoot Dan Broderick?
There's Hermie right there.
no, but I'm sure Linda Kulkina did. When Dan and Linda announced
Excuse me,
their
you've
marriage,
You've answered the question. Did you tell Kim on several
Well,
occasions
it's nice
that
of
you were
Brad
going
to show up.
Dan and or Linda at the wedding?
no, I never told anybody. But Dan and Linda told people for a full year, including Michael Campbell that they hired. But they told everyone, family and friends, from the day they planned this marriage a year earlier, that I was going to come with a machine gun and kill everyone at the wedding and put
Well, that's a
bullets
great
through
way
her
to
head
get
and everything.
invites.
And I laughed about it. I said she had a soap opera mentality. But I never told anybody
So-
I was going to kill anybody at the wedding.
So Dan and Linda just made this whole thing up so that they could hire security guards at their wedding.
They made this up.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
But Dan and Linda did hire security guards for protection at their wedding, correct?
Objection calls for conclusion speculation.
Overruled, you can answer that if you know.
I know
Yes.
what they told the
Yes or
children.
no? Did they hire security guards as far as you knew at the wedding?
I knew they told the children the day they announced they were getting married that they were going to hire security guards a year later at the wedding. And because I was coming with a machine gun and going to kill everybody, and they were going to hire helicopters and everything. And it was all very exciting. And the children thought it was just wonderful.
You knew that there was a security guard that had been hired to follow you that day.
I only know now. I
You
wouldn't have
didn't.
known.
You weren't aware of him at that particular day that he was.
I was
following
aware of some weird person in a blue pickup following me everywhere, but I didn't know who he was.
You also made threats. You told people when you heard that Dan Broderick had proposed to Linda, that there was a little article in the paper that he had gotten down on one knee and proposed to Linda. You told people, by the time I get through with him, he'll be down on both knees. Did you make that statement?
Actually, I thought it was the day of an investment club meeting, and it was very funny. And I said that Dan Broderick on the floor of a bar doing anything was not a newsworthy subject, so I didn't see why it was in the newspaper. And then I called his office to talk to him and tell him that, but he wasn't there, as a joke. And so Bob Valge, who I don't know, answered the phone, and I said, tell him that.
You told him, by the time I get through with him, tell him he'll be down on both knees.
Right,
And you thought that was funny.
I did. I
Just
still think
like
it's funny.
Stealing the wedding.
I still
was
think
funny.
it's funny.
Just like calling Linda a cunt was funny. All these things were funny to you.
Well, not funny, ha-ha, but I did get my little digs in, yes, my little tiny digs.
And you would accept that people perhaps on the receiving end of those things would not necessarily think they were so funny.
Meaning who, Bob Valge?
Yes, for example.
I don't know him. I don't know if he thinks it was funny. I thought it was real funny.
The backless
It is true
entrance,
that by
that
the
was
time of the
it.
wedding, you had bought a gun and you had shown the gun to your children.
I bought the gun the day that Linda broke into my house, and I
Mrs.
showed the
Broderick?
gun immediately to my children when I brought it home, which was not that day.
And so is it true that before the wedding, you had bought a gun and you had shown the children the gun?
Absolutely, yes.
And are you now saying that you were never a marksman, you were never a good shooter, you were never someone who shot guns as a hobby when you were in college?
Welcome
never
back,
shot a
Kid
gun in
Pusher.
college, no.
Did you
In
ever-
eighth grade, in grammar school, a priest named Father McHale.
Yes, I know. You testified
That's
to that. We've heard
That's
it.
it.
Did you ever tell Gail Forbes, as she described, that you were a marksman in college and that you had won awards for shooting in college?
Absolutely not. She could have heard school. I could have said that I shot guns in school and thought it was fun. She could have heard college. I could have said I shot guns when I was in school. I could have said that because I was in school.
Do you recall the incident that she describes when
No.
you were passing by a rifle range? And
No, I
In
don't ever
Berkeley?
remember passing by a rifle range in Berkeley. I wouldn't have known it was a rifle range. I don't remember that particular thing, but if we were passing by and she said that's a rifle range, I said, oh, that was fun. I used to do that in school, but it wasn't college.
but you also told her that you were a marksman and that you had won awards.
Well, they
For
give you
shooting.
paper certificates. Yes, everyone was a marksman. Kim has a certificate saying she was a marksman from
Okay.
summer camp, and Kim doesn't remember shooting the gun.
You made the same statement to Maria Peralta in jail, that you had been a marksman and that you had been a good shot.
I don't remember saying anything to Maria Peralta in jail at all.
Maria Peralta is
Do
the
you
jail
remember
snitch
telling Brian
witness
Forbes that you
who wasn't shown on
had bought
camera.
a 357 Magnum and that you were going to shoot Dan Broderick's balls off?
I know he says I said that, but that's not true, and I never said that. I don't even know what a 357 Magnum is. I've never.
That's
you've
Dirty
heard of,
Harry's
everybody's
gun.
heard of 357 Magnums, haven't they? I mean, that's...
Well, Brian Forbes said that I said it was like Dirty Harry had. I've never seen Dirty Harry. I don't know what Dirty Harry had.
He had a 357 Magnum. It's a big gun. It's like, it's the kind of gun you could do back over the back of the head. Like, there's a word for that. Oh, well. You can hit someone over the back of the head with a 357, and it's like blackjacking them, but there's a word for it. Like the mafia guys used to do it.
Do you recall the incident of going over to his house when you had just acquired your Jaguar to give him a ride in the Jaguar and telling him that you hated Dan Broderick and
Pistol
you were going
whip.
to shoot his balls off? Did you
No.
say that?
The pistol
I
whip a
remember
guy
him
with a
coming for a ride in the
357.
car.
But you never said anything to that effect.
I may have said something sort of like that, but it wasn't like that.
Did you tell Melanie Fuller that you had bought a gun and that you were taking shooting classes with the gun?
Melanie is my friend that had a gun first, and so I
Mrs.
thought it was a good
Broderick?
idea.
if you could just answer my question.
What's the question?
Did you tell Melanie Fuller that you had bought a gun and that you were taking shooting classes with the gun?
When I took the shooting classes was 1986, and I didn't buy a gun there, but Melanie would have known about that.
Did you tell her that you had bought a gun?
I don't know if Melanie knew because after she got married, I wasn't that friendly with her. I don't know if she knew that I bought the gun, but she wouldn't have known that I was taking shooting classes with the gun that I bought because I didn't take shooting classes with the gun that I bought.
Well, my question is just, did you tell her that you had bought a gun and that you were taking shooting classes?
I know I told her about the shooting classes in 86. I'm not sure if I made a point of telling her when I bought the gun. I'm not sure if I think she knew I had a gun.
And she knew you had a gun, that you had bought the gun
I'm not
in
sure.
1989? Did you buy a gun in 1986?
No.
You wouldn't have told her that you bought a gun in 1986.
No, in fact, Melanie had a friend with a shooting range and she wanted me to go there. It was in the house, in the prince's house. And we would have had to use her gun because I didn't have a gun.
Did you tell Patty Monahan that you'd bought a gun back then?
No, Patty Monahan, like Melanie, must have heard that I signed up for these 2 classes because I was looking for friends to do things with. And I thought they might want to go.
Patty Monahan testified that you had told her that you had bought a gun. Did you tell her that?
No, but she heard that I was taking these classes and must have assumed I had a gun,
Well,
which
when
you
you
didn't
took-
need to take these classes.
You took those classes. You're talking about the class that you took with Steve France, the gentleman who testified?
It was an
here in court?
introductory thing.
And
Yes.
that was the class where the first time you all shot the gun, the reason his attention was drawn to you was because you were such a good shot and you were shooting every one of them through the bullseye, right?
I thought it was that I looked so good. I didn't know that it was, I had never heard that before.
Were you not?
I thought he wanted to meet me, which is what it appeared to me.
So that's interesting too, because Betty doesn't want to answer the question the way the prosecutor's asking it, which is just, isn't it true the person beside you at the shooting range thought you were a good shot? No, I just thought he thought I was attractive. But she just spent pretty much her whole defense is the fact that Dan gaslit her into, you're fat, you're old, you're ugly, nobody would want you, and that's why I had to upgrade to a younger model. If you are going with that defense, then you shouldn't, when you're being asked, so is it true that you shot really well? No, I was just fucking hot. No, I'm a smoke show. I just assumed that he thought that I was, the hot chick shooting next to him. So kind of like Sarah, and she has so many narratives that even the ones that, she likes that, they flatter her ego, but they don't help her case. 304.25, we'll go back 30 seconds. Yeah, just being asked about the shooting range incident. And wow, what a perfect change. That's the look Betty has as she's trying to figure out where the prosecutor's going with the question and how she's going to take it somewhere else. And watch how quickly she figures out where she's going to go with it and then answers, with, no, I'm fucking hot. I thought he was attracted to how good looking I am.
Class that you took with Steve France, the gentleman who testified?
It was an
here in court?
introductory thing.
And
Yes.
that was the class where the first time you all shot the gun, the reason his attention was drawn to you was
She's
because
got
you were
it
such
now.
a good shot and you were shooting every one of them through the bullseye, right?
I thought it was that I looked so good. I didn't know that it was, I had never heard that before.
Were you not?
I thought he wanted to meet me, which is what it appeared to me.
Were you
When I
not
found out
shoot-
he was an attorney, I wasn't interested.
Were you not shooting every one of those bullets right through the bullseye? And
Of
any
course
comment?
not. Are you kidding? I couldn't do that. Nobody could do that. It was the first time I'd ever shot a handgun, and I was standing long, like a rifle shot, and I didn't get them all through the bullseye, not even close.
And so Mr. France is lying when he said that he turned and he saw that you got them all through the center cluster of the target?
I don't think he said that. He knows that that's practically impossible to do. I don't think he said that he thought that I was good because I was hitting the thing, but I don't think he said I got them all in the center of the target or anything. In
No,
fact, that's not.
He
even
didn't
close
say
to
that.
true.
He just said that she grouped her shots well, like a marksman would. So, he was probably shooting at the target and had, maybe one good shot, one that might have been a shoulder shot, one that, still hit the paper, 3 that missed entirely. And then she's got this grouping that looks like somebody just fired off like a burst from a semi-automatic weapon that was mounted to, hit center. Oh, she's reliving how good she was, and at the same time trying to say, no, I'm not not a good shot. I just kind of point the gun and, see what happens. So she knows that she needs to argue this for her defense, but really, you could always say I'm a good shot, but in the moment, I was so panicked. I was lucky that I was a good shot, or shooting at a range is completely different than shooting, moving targets. But
I was doing everything wrong.
And still managed to impress him.
Did you tell Connie Cassidy, one of Kim's friends, that you had a gun and that you'd been practicing with the gun?
No, I don't remember telling Connie Cassidy that. I think Kim knew that I had a gun. I know Kim knew I had a gun.
Did you tell Connie Cassidy that you'd been practicing with the gun?
No, I don't remember any specific conversations with Connie.
Did you ever make threats to kill Dan or Linda Broderick in front of Connie Cassidy?
I don't know. Connie was a friend of Kim's over a long period of time.
The mugshot is from her 2017, so she actually looks quite good for it. 73 years old? No, 70 years old, because she'll be 84 in 2032 for her next parole hearing. But yeah, it's pretty good.
And I don't know what she would have heard. I wouldn't have been talking to her, but I wouldn't be surprised if she overheard me say, "That son of a bitch, I'm going to kill him."
With respect to the hearing on March 14th of 1989, after you stole the wedding list, Mr. Berry did go into court to attempt to get an order from the court to have you return the wedding list, correct?
Among a lot of other things, yeah.
Well, the reason, the precipitation, what brought that hearing on was the fact that you had gone and stolen the wedding list, right?
I removed the wedding list from the front steps of the house. Nobody needed to go to court to ask for the wedding list back. All they had to do was ask for the wedding list back. They could have it back.
Just like all they had to do was ask you to stop calling Dan and Linda the bad names, and that would stop too?
No.
Okay.
I had a copy. I made a copy of the wedding list. I didn't need it, and they didn't need it either.
Well, they did request from the judge that you return the wedding list. You had taken it, whether you want to call it stealing or not, you had taken the wedding list.
And I'd be happy to give it back, no problem.
And you'd be happy to give it back, no problem. You said at that hearing, you admitted at the hearing that you definitely had the list, right?
I thought I had the list, but when I got home that day is the day Maria told me that Linda removed stuff from my house.
We're at the hearing,
Right.
which was after that. You went to the hearing
Just
that
minutes after
afternoon. And at that hearing, you told the judge, I have the stupid list and I got a lot of laughs out of it, right?
I thought I had it, but I didn't know if Linda had removed it
Okay.
because that's what she was looking for.
If you would take a look at the transcript of the March 14th hearing, page 7.
Mr. Early got a haircut. Looks a little tighter cropped, a little.
I had the stupid list and I got a lot of laughs out of it. I thought I had the list.
So
I
you
didn't have
say,
it on my person. I
did
thought I had it at home.
You didn't say, I think I have it, I don't know where it is. You said, I have the stupid list and I got a lot of laughs out of it, correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay, and the judge ordered you at that time to return the list.
Right.
The next day.
Right.
And they ordered you to not contact anybody on the list. There was a concern that you were going to be contacting people on that list, and there was a request by the court that you not do that as well.
No, I argued that. I said, I'm not contacting people on this list. They're longtime friends of mine as well. So what we agreed upon was I wouldn't contact anyone I didn't know on the list. Well, why would I contact anyone I didn't know anyway?
Okay. And so you agreed not to contact any people that you
That I didn't know.
know. And you were angry about being at that hearing. You were angry
I
that
was
the judge had
furious.
ordered you to return the wedding list.
No, I was angry about Linda breaking into my house. I was angry at someone calling my work 4 and 5 times that morning and hanging up. I was angry about the 4-hour notice, dirty pool bullshit on my machine again. If they can call work 4 or 5 times to find out if I'm there and hang up, they could have given the 4-hour notice at work.
Which is what they did. They attempted to give you the 4-hour notice at work and then attempted to leave a message at your home too, to give you the 4-hour notice.
Excuse me? What?
Didn't they attempt to contact you at school to give you your 4-hour notice?
I don't know. All I know is someone put a 4-hour notice on the answering machine and then called work a bunch of times and hung up.
Well, obviously you got some notice about the hearing because you went down to court for the hearing.
When I got home and I went home early. I left work over an hour early and ran home thinking there's something wrong. Why would somebody keep calling and hanging up? There's something wrong here. So I went home and sure enough, it was the 4-hour thing. I had 10 minutes to get to court and I flew down to court.
Okay.
And I was informed that Linda would have been in the house too, which I told the judge on the transcript that day.
You, on the transcript of the 14th?
Yes. I was crying and I was very upset, and I said that Linda had just been in my house, and he said, Mrs. Broderick, you have the full whatever of the court to get restraining orders against her. And I said, oh, why bother?
When he ordered you to return the list, he ordered you to return the list by the next day,
And I did.
and you did not.
No, I did.
You did not return the list the next day, did you?
If
Who
I
did
was,
you return the list to?
I believe I brought it to the courtroom and handed it to the marshal
To the marshal there in Judge Howitt's court?
in an envelope. Yeah, Eddie was his name.
And so how is it that you would have said, after the list was not returned to the court as far as they knew, and you had another hearing on the 31st, how is it that you would have said you had no idea where the list was?
I don't know, but there is a definite answer for this. I don't know. You're taking little things out of context and stuff. If we read stuff through, there's logical, truthful answers for all this stuff.
Well, on March 17th, you were ordered to return the list on the 14th by the 15th.
Right.
According to the court, you never returned the list because on the 17th, when it still hadn't been returned, that's when the court suspended any support payments because you had not returned the wedding list, correct?
That's not my recollection of it at all.
May I have marked, Your Honor, as People's Notes of Order?
104.
The minute order dated March 17th,
What year?
1989.
Somewhere.
Hello. Little pet break while we're taking an audio break on the feed.
Time to go inside.
Cadillac in the lower corner
If you
and
take a look
Lola
at
in
that
the
minute
top.
order and the paragraph describing it at the bottom, does that refresh your recollection about whether or not you'd returned the wedding list?
I don't know that I've ever seen this paper before, and this is not what happened, and I don't know who wrote that. I returned it the next day to the man in an envelope. I don't know what that is, and that's not the way it went about the money either.
According to there was no suspension of your support payment until this hearing on March 17th,
No,
when you hadn't returned the wedding list.
no, that's not right.
When was it suspended?
When I reported to court on the 14th is when I hit the locked door and the hearing was over with Mr. Barry and Judge Howitt, and I couldn't get into the courtroom. And they had decided at that time that the kids would be court ordered to go to the wedding, that I would not contact anyone on the wedding list, that the $16,000 a month would be suspended until further notice.
And Mrs. Broderick,
Some other
you then
thing,
went
and
into
that
the
was done.
courtroom. You went into the courtroom and you had your hearing. And the judge said, and you admitted that you had the list, and the judge said, okay, all we want is for you to return the list by tomorrow.
And
I
I
didn't return the list.
No, I
And
did.
that's when the court ordered the suspension of your support payments.
I don't know what happened with that paper, but I didn't have the courage to not follow a court order. I brought that thing in exactly like I was supposed
When
to.
you didn't bring it back and you didn't bring it back, they finally had another hearing on March 31st, right?
I don't know.
Did you go to court on March 31st?
Does it say I was there?
You can't ask questions, Betty.
Showing you a transcript of March 31st, 1989. Could just indicate, does it indicate your name there, Mrs. Broderick?
Yes.
And the court asking you some questions about the wedding list?
I don't know. Let me look at it.
Isn't it true that the court asked you what happened to it? And you said-
Let me look at it.
Well, I'm going to tell you right here. Isn't it true that you said, well, I assume maybe his girlfriend got it. If not, my daughter could have gotten it, who broke into the house the day after I was here. Or maybe he got it himself, who brought the two boys to myself the third and fourth day. And they all came in my house those days. But somebody has got the list, but it's not me. And the wedding invitations have gone out, is my understanding. I have no idea where the stupid list is. Now, can you explain why you would say to the court on March 31st, I have no idea where the stupid list is, if on March 15th you had come back to the court and given the list to the marshal?
What we're talking about here, I think, are copies of the list. I had my own copy machine, remember? And the first thing I did on that list is make a copy of it. In fact, I made a couple of copies of it. And they may have wanted all of the copies at that point.
Is there any discussion about copies here? The first question to you is, well, the first thing I'm concerned about is the wedding list. Do you have it? No, I don't have it. It's gone. What happened to it? I have no idea where the stupid list is.
At that point, I didn't know where the stupid list
You
was.
knew that you brought it back to the marshal, the court the
That's
next
what I
day.
thought.
And you never said that to the judge? Judge, I was here on the 15th and I gave back the wedding list?
Well, let's see the rest of the thing. I mean, I don't know what we're talking about here. I'm just telling you what happened, the way I know what happened.
He always wants
I
to
don't
control
really
the
know what
paper.
this is here. I don't know what they're talking about.
Okay.
This is a partial transcript of something. I don't know what it is.
It's the entire transcript of the hearing. And do you ever say in that hearing,
I don't remember. What was this hearing called?
Do you not say, I have no idea where the stupid list was?
Right. By that point, I didn't have any idea where the stupid list was.
Well, you knew that.
I still don't know what happened to it.
And does the court
Exhausting.
also not say, because you wouldn't admit having a list, you didn't know where it was, that the spousal support will be reinstated? You basically gave up.
I'm not with you on this.
Does the court say spousal support will be reinstated?
Reinstated from when was it taken away?
From when he suspended it on the 17th because you hadn't returned the list.
But see, it's my recollection that on the 14th, it was reinstated right away. I didn't understand that it was ever taken away, literally.
Well, you testified before that they went in the court and they took,
Right.
and they terminated your support payments again.
And then when the doors opened and I came in, it was all straightened out,
Okay,
I thought.
okay. So your support payments never were suspended then in March of
Just
1980.
momentarily until they discovered I was there and we came in and we argued it again and I don't think, no, after I argued it, I don't think they ever were taken away. So that's
Okay,
why I don't understand why it's reinstated.
well, because it had been suspended on the 17th. When you had the court order, the minute order says it had been suspended on the 17th. The fact of the matter is, whether it was temporarily suspended or not, you were paid your support in March, and you were paid your support in April
Right.
and May,
Good
and
night,
you
Kelly
never
G.
missed a support payment at
Right.
any time during 1989.
Right.
Even though you made the statement on direct examination that you told your friends, they're gonna pull it right out from underneath me.
They did, in fact,
Okay,
for a while until I, by luck, showed up and straightened it
it
out.
had nothing to do with your conduct whatsoever of stealing the wedding list.
Yes, it did, but that was the tool they were going to use whenever I didn't do what they wanted me to do, was to pull out the monthly money. I knew that's what he'd do from January 89 when that was the only thing I got in the divorce.
So when you went
Was it
over and
checked
stole
that
the
he
wedding
wouldn't
list,
tell
you
me?
knew that's what he was gonna do?
No, I thought he'd come over to my house and ask for it back, and I'd give it back. That's what I thought he'd do. Or at least call and say he wanted it back or something. I didn't know we'd end up in court.
Well, he'd talked to you on many occasions in the past, and your conversations never were fruitful, were they? In fact, he had told you from
Hey, welcome,
Years.
Michelle.
years past that if you were going to have communications, he preferred if you'd write to him because you could not talk together without something happening.
Oh, that was true since 1985.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think Kitten Pusher's hitting kind of the dichotomy
Let's
that
take morning recess as well.
Yes, sir.
Miss Wells will take a recess on suggestion, but Betty is like, no, I'm fine. I don't need one. Miss Wells is like, yeah, give me a couple seconds to get my shit together. Kitten Pusher says when Betty gets caught in such a blatant lie, it is so hard to believe any part of her story. I feel in my bones that Dan was a dick, but Betty has undermined whatever truth she had to stand on. And I think that's where, hey, Joshua Lee Santiago Schroyer's here. Welcome. I think that's where Betty's undermined ultimately. Like, she was so used to telling this story to get attention, to get sympathy, just even to get it off her chest. And it's a good story. Like, if I met her at a party and she was like, oh, let me tell you, you think you've been screwed over? Let me tell you about my life. They're great stories. They're engaging stories. She tells them, with passion, enthusiasm, probably interesting. The problem is she's told them all so many times and become so self-satisfied in her role that she really has no perspective while she's testifying that those same stories aren't the best things to be telling. Just because they work for her in life, they're not going to work in a courtroom.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our morning recess at this time. We'll be in recess for 15 minutes until 10:45. Please remember the admonition.
The hearing that we've been talking about on March 31st of 1989.
And just so you're aware, it says about 40 minutes of raw testimony, so I'm going to throw up the hour remaining clock. And then towards the end, I'll post the link to this video, which has a 45-minute Dateline episode regarding Betty Broderick. I'll be watching it after I go offline, so if you guys are watching it and commenting, change the comments to newest, and if we all happen to be commenting on what we see in the Dateline thing, we'll see each other's comments almost as though we're live chatting. So watch it in your own time, but if you're watching it right away, like I probably will be, we can watch it together separately.
I circled the first one on the 14th. Next one was on the 31st, for the record, Your Honor, and referring to People's 85C.
All right.
That was the last time that you were in court before November the 5th of 1989, correct?
I wasn't in court on November 5th, 89. That was the last time I was in court.
Right. There were no, you didn't have to go to court in April, May, June, July.
November 5th, 89. Yeah, the reason she wouldn't have had to go to court then, that was the day that it happened. That was the murder. I think that was just a little clever thing that the prosecutor did just to mess with Betty a little bit. Let's just go back there. That was 3/19. Yeah, November 5th, 1989 is the day of the murder. So if she's suggesting, oh yeah, no, I guess you didn't have to go to court on the 5th. Did you have to go December 5th, 89? No.
That was the last time that you were in court before November the 5th of 1989, correct?
Oh, she says last time you were in court before it. Betty, for whatever reason, heard November 5th. You can even see it, like she's looking at Carrie walking away. And she's heard it wrong, and now she's going to go and say something. No, I was never in court that day. Obviously not. You were out committing murder.
I wasn't in court on November 5th, 89. That was the last time I was in court.
Right. There were no, you didn't have to go to court in April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. You didn't go to court, have any hearings in court after the March 31st hearing of 1989, correct?
I went to court with Walter Mond for something, but I don't remember what, and Kathleen Cafaro was there. I don't remember what.
Was that the time in August when you had not returned Rhett and you sent Rhett off to Lake Tahoe?
No, I don't think I don't remember. I had to go to court once with Walter Mond, but it wasn't a hearing. I don't know what it was.
The only things that happened after March 31st of 1989 were things in court that you had generated. You had filed an appeal, you had filed a motion for custody of the children. Those are the things that you were generating, correct?
I hired Walter Mond right after the verdict to get custody of the children in February of 89.
Right. And there was a problem in August which Kathy Cafaro testified to, in which you had Rhett, you did not return him at the end of the visitation, and you sent him off. First you sent him to Lake Tahoe, and then you sent him to New York, correct?
I believe Dan knew about Lake Tahoe. That was with an attorney's family, and I really think Dan knew about that. Then Rhett got back.
That's an interesting point. 13 Mandy says, I'm going to leave it like this. Adultery is wrong, unless you are married to Betty Broderick. I feel so bad for Dan. His life was over the day he married her. I think that, quite apart from whether that particular framing of things is what you're believing, I think it's very easy to believe that their whole relationship was based off of what you did was wrong. Oh, okay. And then it was escalated. And there was never a point where it was just one person did one wrong thing and we're going to get over it. It seems like every wrong thing instigated, oh, you're going to do that, I'm going to do this. Oh, you're going to do that, I'm going to do this. You're going to do this, I'm going to do that. And vicious spiral. But yeah, no winners, no good person. At the end of the day, it's somebody who's maybe in a slightly better position, slightly better standing, with standing 6 feet under, aside from standing on trial. But yeah, negligible difference between the two.
Lake Tahoe early, and Danny was still in Sun Valley, Idaho. I think that's how it went. Danny was somewhere else. Rhett did not want to go to Mission Hills by himself and stay with a maid. He wanted to stay with me. If he stayed with me, I'd get in trouble. So he went to New York to see my parents.
And this was something that Dan didn't know about, and that's why he asked Kathy Cafaro to contact Walter Mond in order to try and get Rhett back.
Yeah, Rhett was hiding behind furniture and grabbing my skirt like a 2-year-old, and he would not go back with Dan. He was not going back there alone. He was not going back.
Okay. You indicated.
And just some context on Linda. So Linda was a flight attendant who moved into paralegal work without any legal experience or typing experience, and was the first employee that Dan hired after purely working for himself. He had contract, per job type people, like temp people, but the first full-time employee he brought on was Linda. And Betty said, "Oh, that's interesting." So I could see that being a bit of an issue at the early stages of building your law firm, and the first new employee is this young 20-something girl with, a good attitude.
That he wanted to
Eager to please.
spend the time with you. That's why you didn't want to send him back. And yet you sent him off to New York.
Because we were always scared to death of police coming to our door. And Rhett was a nervous
Did any
wreck.
police come to your door at any time in 1989?
Whenever the boys ran away from Dan or refused
Mrs.
to go
Broderick,
back,
did any police come to your door in 1989? Yes or no?
I don't remember.
Did any police come to your door in April, May, June, July, August? Even in August, when you sent Rhett off in violation of the court order, did any police come to your door? Yes or no?
Not concerning Rhett, no.
And you didn't call up Walter Mond and tell Walter Mond to contact Kathy Kafar or to contact Dan Broderick and ask if you could send him off to New York. You just went ahead and did it, correct?
Oh, right. Dan wouldn't have agreed to it.
Okay. And so you intentionally violated the court order, knowing there was a court order. You just went ahead and did what you wanted to do.
I
Yes
always
or no?
protected my kids more than obeyed the court order, correct?
Okay. And at that last hearing on March 31st, when it was made clear that you did not have the wedding list anymore, there was also the issue of Kathy Lee and the fact that you had kicked Kathy Lee out of the house, and therefore Dan was requesting to not have to pay child support anymore, correct? The court ordered at that time that he didn't have to pay child support because Kathy Lee had moved back into Dan's house.
The day that the verdict came down in January, I
Mrs.
said she
Broderick.
had moved out.
Okay. And on the hearing of March 31st, since she had moved out back in January, that was when the court also ordered that Dan needn't pay child support anymore because Kathy Lee was living with Dan, correct?
I don't remember if she was living with Dan at that time, but I know I never received the court-ordered support because by the time the verdict came, she was no longer living with me.
Right. You kicked her out of the house and you told the court that it wasn't worth $1,500 to you to hassle with her anymore.
It wasn't worth $3 million to me to hassle with her anymore. The day that I had the argument with her is
Okay.
what I said to her.
Now, on that, you testified too that Dan was switching the visitation at a whim, that he just switched his visitation at a whim was your word.
That's right.
Isn't it true that there were only 2 times when he requested to switch a visitation in the year of 1989 after there was an order? And the first one was at that March 31st hearing where you were already in court, where he requested from the judge to have the boys on the weekend that he was getting married.
Right.
Okay. So he didn't just keep the boys when he wasn't supposed to. He didn't violate the court orders. He went into the court when you were there, when you were represented, and asked if he could switch the weekend so that he could have the boys for the weekend he was getting married and you could have them for another weekend.
And he was
correct?
never denied anything he ever asked for. But I didn't feel the equal ability to go into court and get anything I wanted ever.
Well, okay, we'll talk about that. That you didn't think that it was unreasonable for him to request to have the children on the weekend that he was getting married, did you?
I thought he was court ordering the children to attend his wedding,
Well,
especially the older ones.
It was explained to you at the hearing that nobody was making any court orders about who was to go to the wedding. He was simply requesting to have them for that weekend. And the court made that order, gave you the opportunity to have any other weekend you wanted. And you waived it, didn't you?
I don't remember. I didn't think it was proper that the children be ordered to the wedding when they were so ambivalent about going.
Did the court not say there will be no court order telling him the kids have to go to the wedding? There will be a court order changing the visitation that weekend, that he will have the weekend as his, and you will have another weekend of your choice. And you answered, okay. Then it was asked of you, is there a specific date that you would want in exchange? And you said, no, I'll just waive my weekend for now.
Post I just pinned from Disney Mom kind of gets to the heart of everything, and it's that all these people needed therapy before their lives went off the rail. And if there's going to be any message from today's video, it's just that. If you need mental health support, get it. If it's calling a free hotline that at least has a trained professional that can give you some perspective, then that's what you got. If you can get referrals to talk to somebody who can spend more time on your case specifically, then go do it. If you had a broken arm, you wouldn't just wait for it to set itself. You'd go see a doctor. And when something's not going right in your head, when people are saying, hey, Betty, I think you're getting a little crazy about this whole thing, there was ample opportunities for her to, to take the 16 grand a month, or to take whatever pittance she was getting and, try and make a business for herself away from Dan and sue after the fact, retroactively, for everything that he would have owed in the past. And, there's different routes. And same thing with Dan, to stay with her and needle her if this was, what he was doing as claimed. He could have gotten away. He could have, hey, we're going to start our own life. We'll leave you and the kids and, let that be stable. But it seems like there was a lot of decisions made through their relationship that just escalated things beyond all sanity. And it just speaks to, get a little mental health help. There's no stigma about it. It's no different than if you'd hurt a limb or, body part. You get some help, and then you're better moving forward. Even if you don't take the advice 100%, sometimes you just need the perspective.
Correct?
I don't remember how it came out, if that's what it says there. I think I did get the kids when he was on the honeymoon, though.
Okay.
I don't remember.
If you take a look at page 13, isn't it clear from reading either here or here that the court was not ordering the kids to go to the wedding? It was simply giving Dan Broderick.
And really, and that kind of gets to the fault in the chat. There's a little bit of discussion over fault and stuff, and that's kind of it. With mental health, it's no different than, whose fault is it that my arm's broken? It's your fault, it's my fault. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. Go to the doctor. It's going to help you fix it. If somebody's fucking with your head, maybe it's not your fault that you're not feeling okay. Maybe it's not your fault that you're getting fucked with mentally. There's still somebody who can help you. And, a good example for that. So I was working for Starbucks, and I hated working for them. I just thought I had all the highest hopes going in and just felt completely disenfranchised. I thought they were disingenuous. Everything looked like surface clutter on, a corporate message. And anyway, I wasn't happy with it. One of the things I did was there's a corporate, mental health hotline, and I called, and apparently I qualified for 6 sessions based off of, my employment level. And I went and saw someone, and I was kind of complaining about how I felt at work and how, I was middle-aged. I was in, my mid-30s. I was like, what the hell am I doing? I'm just trapped, getting no appreciation. And I feel like, I'm learning things. I've got these skills, and the guy who's not a Starbucks employee, he's just the person Starbucks paid for to talk to me, said, you've got those skills. No matter how they're treating you, everything you've learned is yours. So, even worst case scenario, everything you're telling me is true. Sounds to me like you're a more capable person than when you started with them. Take it. Go be capable. Go do something. Like, you've got a lot going for you. And, that little message was enough for me to kind of get out of the funk I was in that time. And it would have been easy for me to say, no, I'm not using Starbucks's mental health thing. Fuck Starbucks. Fuck these guys. They're the ones who made me feel like this. Sometimes you just, take a breath and reach out, get the help that's out there.
That weekend, and you were given the opportunity to have another weekend.
Right, but ordering the kids to be in his house was the same as ordering them to the wedding, because the wedding was in his house.
No weekend was taken away from you. You had an opportunity to have another weekend, and in fact, you waived having another weekend, correct?
I don't remember how it went. I think I ended up with the kids over the honeymoon. What they meant to me was, do I have a specific date that I want to change for? And I had no specific date. I had no plans for any specific reason that I would trade him for.
Okay, and so you said at the time, I'll waive it. I don't want to know.
I didn't have a specific reason or date to change anything.
The only other time that he requested for a change in the visitation was when you went into court in September to have the children when Dan and Linda went to Greece for the week of Greece. And at that time, he requested that he have the boys for the weekend that he went to Notre Dame, correct?
I guess so. I wasn't there. I think that's the one.
Okay, well, you knew that your attorney was going into court to make that request, that you have the kids for that weekend.
Right.
Okay, you'd filed a motion, you'd filed a declaration.
My attorney did. Right.
Well, that was on your behalf, correct?
Right. I was only involved by telephone at this time.
So you weren't going to any of those hearings at that time?
No, I wish I'd been there, then we wouldn't have had the problem that arose. He
Well-
told me I shouldn't be there, otherwise I would have been there.
Cheers.
You indicated that at that hearing, well, one, again, it was a request by Dan Broderick to simply switch weekends. He didn't want to take an extra weekend, take a weekend from you. He wanted to simply switch weekends. He asked the court for permission so that he could have the boys on the weekend he went to Notre Dame, and you could have another weekend, correct?
Right, but I had similar reasons why he shouldn't have been able to do that, for the same reason. I had plans on a certain weekend that I couldn't have the boys, and he got it in his favor without any input from me.
And you testified that it was because of that switch, that it wrecked your weekend to go to Acapulco that you had already planned. Right.
It upset it.
Okay. You testified, you acknowledged that the weekend of the 5th, the weekend that you had the boys, the weekend that you went over and killed Dan and Linda Broderick, that was your weekend. You had the boys under the court order for that weekend.
Okay, right.
The weekend before that, on the 29th, was the weekend that you went to Acapulco.
Right.
That was always never your weekend. That was
Right.
always Dan and Linda's weekend.
Correct, that's why I made the plans.
And that's why you made the plans to go to Acapulco.
Right.
And when the 2 weekends were changed in September, when Walter Mond went in to change those weekends, it had nothing to do with that weekend of October the 29th. It was 2 previous weekends that were switched, wasn't it?
I lost it completely. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's a better answer than a lot of them so far,
Does
Betty.
it not say in this order, the petitioner shall have visitation and custody of the minor children from 6 p.m. on October 20th through 6 p.m. on October 22nd? In that this is the regular scheduled time for respondent's visitation. Respondent shall have substituted
Hey,
visitation from 6 p.m. on October 13th through 6 p.m. on October 15th. So the weekends that had been changed were the 2 weekends before.
I'll throw up a picture
These 2
of Betty's
weekends here were
boyfriend.
the weekends that had been switched, and it had nothing to do with wrecking your plans for Acapulco.
I'm
Do you want to take
totally,
a look at that order?
okay, keep working on this. Show me which weekends who had
Keep
what
working
there,
on it.
and I'll show you exactly what happened.
You've already testified, Mrs. Broderick, and it's in the court order that you had the boys under the court order on the weekend of the 5th, the weekend that you
That
killed
was-
Dan.
That was my weekend, with no argument, no question. Nobody tried to change that weekend.
And the weekend before was the weekend that you went to Acapulco, and nobody tried to change that weekend either. The only switch of weekends were the 2 weekends before that, where you had no plans. Nothing was done to wreck your plans for Acapulco. Take a look at the order here.
Petition shall visitation. When would I have seen this order? I mean,
Doesn't matter when you saw the order. The fact is that you
That's a natural,
testified
6 p.m.
that they wrecked your plans for Acapulco because they switched the weekends on you. And the fact of the matter is, they never switched those weekends. They switched the 2 weekends before, and you had them. You knew when they went to South Bend, and you knew when you had them the weekend before.
I'm not agreeing with the thing you say, because I'm not following you at all. All I know is what I know, what happened.
Excuse me, okay, let's start with this. You had the weekend on November the 5th. You're following me there, right?
Right,
You didn't have the weekend on November the 29th, correct?
right.
And that
That's why
was the
we
trip
made
of
the
Acapulco,
plans.
right?
Right.
And nothing was done to change that weekend, was there?
No, I could have had the boys that weekend instead of the one before.
But
When did,
you had made plans to go to Acapulco on that weekend.
okay,
And so that weekend wasn't changed. Nothing was done with that
I
weekend.
didn't see the memo.
Nothing messed up your plans for Acapulco. The 2 weekends before, under this court order, were the ones that were changed. And there was no problem with anybody messing up your prearranged plans or messing up your ability to have the children, was there?
Yes, there was.
And where, on what weekend was that?
I don't understand what this says here or what you're
Okay.
doing. I don't understand
Let
which
me ask
weekend
you-
was in and which, if you would
Okay.
tell me on which weekend on the calendar that I had the boys before this happened. Can you
Okay.
know that? Do you know that?
Petitioner shall have visitation in the custody of the minor children from 6 p.m. on October 20th until 6 p.m. on October 22nd.
And that's Dan.
Brad Smith's in the
Taking
courtroom
my
today,
weekend.
by the way.
That should have been my weekend, see? Right? Right.
No,
The
October
20th should
29th.
have been my weekend.
You were the petitioner at this point.
See, I don't even know that. Okay, now what's going on here?
Okay, the question is, and you've already testified, that there was no doubt about the November 5th weekend, and there was no doubt about the weekend before.
According to the court order of January 89, that
Your
set the
plans had
weekends.
already been set for October 29th for Acapulco.
Right.
Okay, and nothing was done to change that. Nothing was done under this order, was there, to change the weekend of October the 29th? Yes or no?
I don't know if we followed that order. I don't know what happened to the weekend of the 13th and the 14th and the 15th. I'm
Was
totally
anything
confused.
done under this order that was signed September the 22nd? Order of the court, Frederick Castro, judge. Was anything done to change the weekend of October the 29th?
I don't know, because I don't know what happened on the weekend of the 13th. I don't know whose weekend that
Was
was. You're
anything
saying they
done to
changed the
change-
20th and moved it forward to the 13th, 14th? Is that what that's saying?
All I'm asking you is, was anything done to change the
I
weekend
don't
of the
know. I don't know
29th?
what that's saying. I don't know what happened.
You can't read the words?
But I don't know if we did that.
Oh, Brad Wright.
Just because it says that there doesn't mean that's what happened.
Brad Wright.
It was after the hearing on March 14th when obviously you knew that Dan and Linda were getting married. You had stolen the wedding list only a day or two before. You had, at least other people have testified, that you had threatened to kill Dan and Linda at the wedding. It was after you had gone to that court hearing where you basically said that you were very angry that they had brought you to court. You felt that you were humiliated because they were ordering you to return the wedding list. It was right after you left that court hearing that you went directly to Weiser's gun store and bought the gun, correct?
Exactly.
Well, that was a quick answer for all the ones that she went off on. Wow.
Now, when you bought the gun, you said that you bought 3 boxes of bullets.
I think, yes, that's my recollection.
Okay, and one was the hydroshock bullets, one was the target bullets, and then you bought another box of what kind of bullets?
I remember them as being cheap, medium, and good. That's the way I remembered them. Some were called retreads or reloads or something, and one were brand new, regular target shooting bullets, and the other ones were the ones you would use for self-defense protection.
And you shot a whole box of those bullets the day that you bought the
Yes,
gun?
yes.
Okay, how many bullets are
I'm
you
not
talking
sure if I
about?
shot the cheapest ones or the medium ones. I don't know. If they come in,
10, 15, 50?
I think it was the same kind of a box as the other ones are here.
50 shot
If
box?
that's what's in there, it looked the same size.
And when you picked up the gun, did you load it with the hydroshock bullets?
No, I don't know. I don't know if that's the same gun that I picked up.
No,
Or
I'm not
not.
talking about whether or not it's the same gun you shot, but when you went back and you picked up the gun after the waiting period, you picked up the gun and you said that the gun was loaded the day that you left that shop when you picked up the gun.
Yes, that's
Did
what,
you load it or
because
did
I
the
didn't
people
load
there
it
at
at
the shop
home.
load it?
I don't remember who loaded. I think the man did, but I wouldn't say that I didn't. I don't know.
Okay.
But it was
You-
loaded and ready to go when I left the shop
Okay, so you knew that it was loaded with hydroshock bullets when you left the shop.
with the good bullets, right?
Okay. And you took the gun home, the loaded gun, and you put it somewhere in your closet when you got it home.
I put it in my nightstand, I put it in my closet, and I put it in a dresser. I moved it around. I wasn't comfortable with any of those places.
Okay, and you indicated that you were concerned about safety. You were so concerned about safety of the gun that you showed it to the boys and you explained it to them, and that you showed it to Maria and you explained it to her. Now, you heard her testify that she had never seen the gun or knew anything about the gun until she came upon it accidentally once going through your lingerie drawer.
And I particularly remember pointedly showing Maria that gun and saying in English, Maria, this is real, as well as I could say in English. I don't know how to do Spanish at all. This is real. I just didn't want her to happen upon it in a drawer and think it was a toy or something.
But
So
her testimony was that's how
that she
she
didn't
saw the
remember
gun.
that.
So she didn't remember you sitting her down and showing her a gun.
I didn't say I sat her down. I think we were in our bedroom and I pointedly wanted to tell Maria, the girls, and the boys that there was now a real gun in the house. That if you see this thing, this is not a toy. This is a real thing.
And you said it with that amount of sincerity and seriousness to Maria, and she didn't remember that ever occurring.
I honestly thought I educated Maria to the fact that if you come upon this in a drawer anywhere, know that it is real and don't touch it.
When you showed the gun to the boys and you were explaining to them that this was a real gun, did you take the gun out and show it to them?
The gun out.
You take the gun out of the case. It was in a case, right?
I don't remember if I let them touch it.
I know they saw the gun, so the case must have been open, and if I probably held it. I don't know if I let the boys hold it.
So in case you're wondering what the translation for "this is real," because she claims to not speak any Spanish, so just tried to say it in the best she could. Esto es real. This is real. Esto es real. The real part is identical, so I don't know how much language gap there would be over "this is real." Esto is real? I don't know what you're saying with esto, but this is real. Esto is real? There's some kind of language barrier we can't get past.
Well, the gun comes in a case. Do you recall when you were showing the boys the gun and explaining it to them? Did you take the gun out and show it to them?
I'm not sure the gun would have been in the case the day I showed it to them, because when it was in my nightstand and in the dresser, it was not in the case.
Okay, so at some point you separated the case from the gun.
The case was made to hang in a closet. So that was my first thing, is to hide it among the clothes in a closet in that case. And then after I moved it out of the closet, I didn't use the case anymore.
So you took the gun all by itself and you put the gun in your drawer in your bedroom.
Right next to the bed.
And when you were showing the boys this gun, is it from that drawer? Did you take it out of the drawer and show the boys this gun to tell them this was a real gun?
I don't remember if it was in the drawer at that time. I don't remember where it was, but
Where were you?
I showed the boys
Where were you when you explained this to the boys?
in the house, but I don't remember what room or anything.
And when you took the gun out to show them that this was a gun and you talked to them about how
They were not supposed to touch it.
not supposed to touch it and how dangerous it was still loaded. You had a loaded gun that you were showing these two boys and talking about safety, correct?
Yeah.
And in fact, after you showed the boys this gun, Danny was so concerned about the fact that you were going to use this gun to kill his father that he stole it, that he grabbed it, he took it, and he ran outside to try and hide it from you, didn't he?
He took the gun case outside. I don't remember if the gun was in the case at that time, but Danny thought the gun was in the case at that time. So that told me that he wasn't scared by the fact, don't touch that gun, because he thought it was in there. I don't know if it was in there.
So, but he was so concerned about what you were going to do with that gun that he took the gun case with the gun in it, or maybe the gun case
He
without
touched
it.
the gun.
Did he
Right.
touch the gun, or did he touch the gun case?
He touched the gun case, but he thought he had the gun in there.
Okay, so he took the gun case. He'd obviously seen the gun case. He knew it had the gun in it. He took the gun case and he took it out of the house. He ran out of the house crying because he was afraid of what you were going to do with this gun, didn't he?
That's what he said.
And after Danny took the gun out of the house and tried to hide it, you took it away from him. And where'd you put it?
Again, I don't remember if the gun was in the case or not, so I don't remember where I put it. But that's the same day I had the gun in my pocket when Dan came to the house. It's the same day.
Well, you testified before that after Danny ran out with the gun, that you didn't keep it in the closet anymore, and that's when you put it in your drawer.
See, I don't remember where the gun was. It was moved around 3 different places. I don't know specifically that day, but I don't know where I put it.
And so
But I know I had it in my pocket.
After Danny took the gun away, after you knew that he was terrified of this gun, and after you knew, I think your words this time around were that he was fascinated with this gun, you still kept the gun in the lingerie drawer of your house, correct?
No, I don't know.
That's where Maria found it. That's where Maria came upon it. It was kept there in the lingerie drawer of your house.
At times it was kept there, but not usually when the boys were in the house. See, Maria would be there on weekdays. The boys would be there on the weekend. So
Okay. And so where was it on the weekends then when the boys would come to the house?
on the weekends in the summer when the boys were there, we were away on a trip. So the gun was home and the boys were with me. When the boys were home is when I started putting it in my purse and keeping it with me or locking it in the car. They didn't know it was in the purse. No one ever saw it in the purse.
No one ever saw the gun in your
Not
purse?
that I know of.
This was a purse that you carried around with you that had all of your stuff in it. You had a big purse that had a lot of stuff in it, right?
Yes, which is exactly why I did not really carry it around with me.
Okay. You put the gun, again, indicating that you knew how fascinated Danny was in this gun. You kept the gun in the house, whether you put it in your lingerie drawer, or whether you put it in your purse. You still kept it there, and you kept it loaded, didn't you?
Yeah.
That's what you're testifying to, anyway,
What?
that you kept the gun loaded.
The gun was always loaded from the day that I bought it. I never unloaded it and loaded it again.
And when the boys would come over to the house on the weekends to spend time with you, knowing again the danger that a gun presented and knowing the danger that a loaded gun presented, your decision was to keep it with you and to keep it with your purse.
Yes.
And you carried the purse, well, that weekend, that Friday when they came over, when you went to pick them up at school. Did you have a gun in your purse when you went to pick them up at school?
Yes.
Yes?
And the purse usually stayed in the car. It didn't come out of the car with me places.
And when was it that you had taken the gun out of from wherever it was and put the gun in your purse that weekend?
I don't remember.
Well, it was a Friday before you went to pick up the boys.
Right.
When on Friday did you make the conscious decision to go get that gun and put it in your purse?
Yeah, I didn't make that decision on Friday. I don't know when I...
Well, how long had you been carrying the gun around in your purse?
I don't know. The gun was in the purse the weekend I went to Acapulco also. And that's the story that I came out of my house and the gun was never under the seat of Brad's car ever. The purse was in the Suburban with the gun. I was leaving my house to go in a car with someone else. And I had to get my purse.
This is a crazy thing to interrupt for, but there's a book on G-spots, Carmen, Victoria Carmen. Where do I get this book on G-spots?
Out of the Suburban. And when I got the purse out of the Suburban, I remembered the gun was in it. So that's when I put the gun under the seat of the Suburban, locked the Suburban, and went to Acapulco with my purse.
You testified before that the only reason you put the gun in your purse was because you knew the boys were coming over to visit. And that was the safest place you thought it could be, was in your purse.
Right.
And so why, Mrs. Broderick, would you have it in your purse on the weekend that you went to Acapulco when you knew you weren't going to have the boys?
But see, I don't remember putting it in for that weekend either. It seemed that it was in the purse for a while because I was moving. And I had these teenage boys helping me move, and we were moving dresser drawers. I was moving between places, and I didn't want anyone to find that gun in a dresser drawer or anything. So it just stayed in the car in the purse. It stayed, that's where it stayed.
The purse gun.
That's not what you testified to before, though, was it? You testified that whenever the boys would come over, that you would specifically go get the gun and put it in your purse because you thought that was the safest place to be.
Whenever the boys were coming and it wasn't in my purse, I put it in my purse for those reasons.
Okay, and now you're saying that you sort of constantly carried this gun in your purse?
No.
But it was known as the purse gun, right?
So when was it that you recall that you put the gun in the purse before this weekend of November the 5th?
What I recall about the gun is the Acapulco weekend. So when I came back from Acapulco, if we are working backwards, but I don't remember this, you would think that I took the gun out from under the seat of the car and put it back in the purse.
Did you have a license to carry a concealed weapon?
No.
Okay.
I had a permit for the gun, but
And you carried that gun with you in your purse wherever you drove and driving to the airport? Is that what you said?
no, it didn't go to the airport.
Victoria elaborates on the G-spot book, and apparently Dan bought one and read it in front of Betty, looking for erogenous zones and G-spots. That feels like it would be icky, like as far as a foreplay assignment, whether, you were doing it to cheat with someone else, but even firsthand, you'd feel almost like a specimen on a table, like, got this amateur gynecologist trying to poke and prod and like, how about there? Anything? You feel like wetting yourself? How about now? Like, yeah, it couldn't have been a fun evening.
Stayed under the seat of the car in my driveway in the Suburban. I went in someone else's car.
And when you came back, then you took the gun out of the
must have,
purse?
yeah.
And you put it
No, took
back
it out
in-
from under the seat of the car and put it back in the purse.
and left the gun in your purse for that whole week before the weekend of
Right,
Friday?
because of all the moving and everything. Again, I don't particularly remember doing that, but restructuring it backwards, that's how it probably went.
And you were busy doing all of this moving and doing all of these things and being distracted with all of this stuff.
Right.
And you felt the safest place for this gun, this loaded gun, was to be in your purse.
Yep.
When you went shopping with Lee on that Friday and you went to Nordstrom's, did you have the gun in your purse as you were shopping?
First off, I don't think I did go shopping with Lee on Friday. I think she's wrong because of all the other things that you've told me I did on Friday. I don't know where we would have had time to go shopping.
Well, Mrs. Broderick, I haven't told you you did anything on Friday.
Last year you did. You told me all these things I did on Friday, and I couldn't have humanly possibly been at real estate appointments and tax appointments and shopping at Nordstrom and picking the boys up and with Maria in the house all at the same time. It's just physically not possible.
So you didn't pick up the boys until after school.
Bernice, you and
did the boys
Disney
before
Mom
after school,
have
correct?
said almost the exact same thing. What a crazy trial for how often how did I lose it? I've never seen a trial like this where the witness and the prosecutor argues. Yeah, they're getting away with a lot. And it's interesting to note that the prosecutor here goes on to become a judge within about 7 years after this trial. So respect for decorum aside, and for the normal way that one should conduct themselves, this lawyer, she's getting into it with Betty. You can see it's a personal thing too. Like, some stuff must be hanging over from that last trial where it went to a hung jury.
Right.
And you heard Lee testified that earlier in the morning and over the lunch hour, you went shopping with Lee.
Right, but that's what
In
Lee
fact,
said.
That's what Lee said. That's what she recalled it specifically because you were very angry about the letter that you had received.
Okay.
And she said, Mom, let's not talk about it. Let's just go shopping. That was the Friday before November the 5th, correct?
I'm not sure, because my recollection of that morning was the appointment with Mary DIETZ, and I'm restructuring that from dates of appointments on calendars and things.
Did you go
I spent
shopping
that
with
morning. I don't remember. It
Okay,
wouldn't
well,
have
did
been
you
a
go
big
shopping
deal.
with her the day before on
I
Thursday?
could have.
Okay, and did you carry the gun around, the loaded gun around in your purse when you were shopping with Lee?
No, anyone will tell you that when I went shopping, and we probably went to Nordstrom's. That's probably where we were, because that's the only place we used to go. I would take the credit card in my pocket for wherever we were going. If it was a food place, I'd take a MasterCard. If it was Nordstrom, I'd take my Nordstrom plastic card and not carry the purse, because, as you've already said, it was very bulky and very heavy, and I didn't carry it.
In the chat, Mandy says, "Hello, darkness, my
All
old
right,
friend."
back to the shopping with Lee, just so that it's clear. She testified, as you heard, that you went shopping on that day and that you were angry about receiving that letter, and that you claimed that your dad's trying to put me back in jail again. You were complaining about that letter on Friday. You heard her testify to that, correct?
I don't think that's exactly what she testified to. There were at least two letters that week that came, and I think she's mixed up that I was upset about the other letter that came earlier.
Her specific statement was that you were referring to, Dan, your dad is trying to put me back in jail again. There was no other letter that referred to anything about jail, was
Right.
there?
I know she said that, but I think on that actual day I was upset about mail. I don't know if she would have known about that last letter.
So Lee is mistaken about her
I don't know.
testimony with respect to that.
I'm totally confused about that whole weekend. We're practically in the weekend now. With everyone trying to reconstruct everything, I don't know.
The fact of the matter is that you didn't just keep that gun in your purse for safety reasons whenever the boys came over, correct? You took the gun out and you put it in your pocket when Dan was coming over to pick the boys up.
That was the exact same day that you described earlier, where Danny took the gun because he said he was afraid that I was going to use it to kill his father. And to prove to him that I wasn't going to use it to kill his father, I had it in my pocket when Dan came to the house. And Dan came in the house and walked all around the house and took the boys and left. And as they were driving away, I said, see, I took it out of my pocket and said, see, here's the gun. I'm not going to kill your dad with the gun.
So that's your explanation for that.
For that one day, yeah.
For the time that Danny, as he's driving away, after Dan has come to pick him up, you're standing on the doorway showing him the gun like this, and he's
It wasn't
sobbing.
in the doorway. It was in the street. He wasn't sobbing
He
at all.
wasn't sobbing
He
to
was
his
smiling.
father?
Danny, no. He wasn't sobbing at all.
So you had this loaded gun in your pocket when Dan came over, and you were showing this loaded gun to your son as he was driving away.
Right.
You had that gun in your pocket on more than that one occasion when Dan came over, didn't you? You testified that you put it in your pocket every time Dan came over.
After that day, I had it in my pocket, I think, one more time, but there were not a lot of other times that Dan came over. When the boys
Did
were
you
around,
not tell Dr. Goldspan that whenever Dan came over, you put the gun in your pocket?
yes, but Dan didn't come over. I don't remember Dan coming over very much. What month are we
You
kind of
admitted
in?
that pardon me?
What month is this supposedly happening in?
We're talking about in September and October leading up to November 5th of 1989. The last several times that Dan came over to pick up the boys, you had the gun in your pocket.
I just remember twice.
There was another time when you had the gun in the pocket. When you took the gun out, you put it in the pocket. Danny didn't steal it from you. Danny went up and he wrapped his arms around you because he was so concerned that you were going to shoot his dad.
No, that's all that one time.
And he stole it from you then? He reached it out of your pocket and ran away?
No.
Well, when was the time that he stole it from you?
You mean when he had the case out on the front lawn and he
Yes.
thought he had the gun? That was in the morning of a day. And in the afternoon at 5 o'clock when Dan came is the second half of that. It's all the same day.
He found out about the gun. He was concerned about the gun when you told him about it back in March when you bought it before the wedding. That's when he took the gun case, and that's when he ran out.
See, that's not a question.
No, it isn't. I mean,
That
it's
was
the same day. I don't know when
That
the day
totally,
was. It's the same day.
that was an egregious example of it right there. The prosecutor just said a bunch of stuff that she thought was true without any question at all. 35108.
had the gun, that was in the morning of a day. And in the afternoon at 5 o'clock when Dan came is the second half of that. It's all the same day.
He found out about the gun. He was concerned about the gun when you told him about it back in March when you bought it before the wedding. That's when he took the gun case, and that's when he ran out.
Like, there's barely even an inflection of voice to make it a question, but it was just a bunch of statements right there.
No, it isn't. I mean,
No, it isn't. That's the right answer, at least, Betty. But yeah, prosecutor, I think she's off her game a little bit. I think Betty's is in her head, and she sometimes is emotionally continuing the fight rather than getting her facts straight.
it's the same day. I don't know when the day was, but it's the same day. I mean, I don't know when the day was. You're saying it's September, October?
No, I'm saying that there were definitely two different instances. I'm saying when he first
it was
found
the
out
same
about the gun,
No, it was the same day.
before the wedding, he was upset about the fact that you bought the gun before the wedding. When you told him about it, he cried about it to his friend Matt Curry, didn't he? That his mother had bought a gun and he was concerned about the fact that you were going to kill his father.
Are you asking me that?
Yes.
How would I have known that? I don't know that. I mean,
Yeah, Betty throws ketchup and Dan throws fish tanks and kicks dogs.
I never heard that
Well, not kicks, that's present tense, but he kicked dogs.
except from you.
Even the people testifying about him kicking dogs testified, well, they're very kickable dogs. Shih Tzus, you know? Kind of right in that kickable range. I've kicked the dog.
When you picked up the boys on Friday, you had the gun in your purse and the purse was in your car.
I think so, yes.
Okay. And then you went to a football game that night with Danny and Rhett. Danny was playing football. You had the gun with you at that time.
At the school. It would have been in the car.
You went out to dinner with them. You also had the gun with you at that time.
Would have been in the car.
And your purpose of carrying this gun around during this whole period of time was just for safety purposes.
I didn't know where else to put it, that I
me.
could keep my eye on it as well as that, yes.
You didn't have any thought of any place else where you could have locked that gun up where it would have been safe.
I was putting a floor safe in the condo. It had already been installed, but it wasn't locked down and it wasn't fully installed yet. But the hole was dug and there was going to be a floor safe in the master bedroom closet of the condo. And when I moved there, I would have locked it in there, but I never
And
moved.
Yeah, Disney Mom says, holy guacamole, can you imagine being their neighbors? And by the sounds of it, you'd see Betty, you know, she's out there one day burning Dan's clothes in a gasoline fire. Anyone else, you'd think that, you know, you had, well, God, I think that wasn't BTK, but I think one of the guys that came up in Mindhunter, or in the series Mindhunter, got, like, the neighbors said, you know, we could smell it was like burning clothes and like just a really odd smell that I'd never smelled before. It was somebody who was burning evidence in their backyard in a fire bin.
Is there any particular reason why you didn't take the bullets out of the gun while you were carrying it around and so concerned about safety?
It just didn't, no.
Hey,
It just
stuffed
didn't- it didn't
shuffling
occur to me at
squirrel.
all.
Welcome. That's a new name to the stream.
The next day on Saturday,
It's a good time for a catch-up. Stuffed Shuffling Squirrels just joined the stream, and we are getting near the end of tonight. But we're in the middle of a marathon rewatch of the Betty Broderick trial of 1991. We've got about 8 days left. That said, some of the days are split in two, because now that I'm 13 days into a Betty Broderick marathon, I've realized that I need the occasional 2 or 3 hour day. I can't keep doing 6-hour days through the stream, so... tomorrow there'll be another stream. It'll be starting at the same time as this. I'm going to go home for my rest and relaxation 48-hour holiday back to my home. So I should be, it's only 3 or 4 hours away from here. So it's a nice, easy drive. I'll be back at this time tomorrow, 5 p.m. California Chino time, 8 p.m. on the East Coast, doing the next stream. And we might go a little long because it's Friday night and I don't have anything to do, so I'll be spending that time with you. We've got about 7 minutes left in this video before it goes to the Dateline footage. I'll pause it there and then give you guys the link to that if you want to continue to watch the Dateline episode about the Betty Broderick situation.
when you went grocery shopping and when you went to a soccer game with Rhett and when you went to get haircuts, you were carrying that gun around in your purse?
Probably not. It was probably in the car, which is where it just was.
It is true, you've indicated that you filed a motion for custody of the boys in September of 1989, correct?
I think it was filed before then. I know Mr. Mond went to court in September, but I think the motion was filed a lot earlier, but I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Sometime over that summer, you filed a motion, or Mr. Mond filed a motion on your behalf.
The only point of hiring him in February of '89 was to get custody of the boys during that summer, yes.
And Dan Broderick had not filed any opposition to that motion, correct?
I don't know.
You were not aware of him filing any opposition to that motion, correct?
I don't know.
Well, Mr. Mond was forwarding any letters or any correspondence he had to you, correct? That's why you had the letters that you've already identified. He would forward those to you.
All I know is on this hearing that I was expecting to happen was put off. I don't know why.
You knew that Mr. Broderick had not filed any opposition to that motion. He'd filed oppositions before to motions, and he hadn't filed any opposition to this one. And you knew that, correct?
I wasn't informed of any of that. I don't know. All I know is September was supposed to happen for this custody fight. September came and went and nothing happened.
Well, you knew he was
put off
taking
till
your-
October.
He was taking the depositions of the doctors. He was taking the deposition of Dr. DeVos. He was taking the deposition of Dr. Nelson. You were aware of that.
That was done before the September hearing, I believe.
That was done in October. The two
Oh.
depositions of those doctors were taken in October.
Well, I didn't remember that. I didn't know why September was put off. And he could have taken them before the September hearing if he wanted.
Obviously, there was no need for him to have taken the depositions of these doctors if he was opposing the motion. He didn't need to do that. In fact, if he had control of everybody in the legal system, he didn't need to do anything like that, correct?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, it's clear that he was not opposing your motion at that point.
No, it's clear to me that he was. If he was going along with it, why would he have to take depositions of doctors?
Why would he have to do anything if he controlled the legal system and all he had to do was walk in and tell them what to do and they'd do it? Well, isn't that essentially what you said Dan Broderick's done all along? He's controlled everybody. There's all this influence peddling and he just tells them what to do it and they do it.
Dan Broderick was
Objection, argument.
Stand.
You knew that Dan's attorney, Kathy Cafaro, and Walter Mond were negotiating to transfer custody to you.
I know that's why I hired Walter Mond.
And
was
you
to do
knew that was occurring because there were letters being sent back and forth and those letters were being forwarded.
I knew completely the opposite. I knew that September didn't happen, October didn't happen, and that Dan and his employee, Kathleen Cafaro, were doing everything in their power to keep a custody hearing from happening. This was not a person who was going to agree to custody because there's nothing keeping him from agreeing to it.
Well, there was nothing keeping them from writing letters back and forth and talking about how to work out the deal then either, was there?
They were fighting back and forth. They were not trying to work out any deal. They were causing more trouble and more fights and raising issues. There was nothing keeping Dan from just giving me the boys on any moment he decided to. We didn't need to go to court. We didn't need to fight over anything.
You knew you complained, well, let me back that up. It was your position after you were arrested on this case at the bail review. It was your position taken by your attorney that Dan Broderick was getting ready to turn custody over to you. Didn't he make that representation?
Who was my attorney at that time?
At that time, it was Mark Wolf. And did he not say in open court, it's my understanding from talking to the attorney who represented her at the time that they were very close to changing custody of her children from Dan Broderick to Mrs. Broderick around the time that this incident took place?
No, I have
I
an
don't
objection. This is just what I talked about is improper.
Stand.
And I would ask the motion that the answer be, that the question be stricken.
Stricken.
Did you have any conversations with strike that?
Yeah, Dan's no good. Dan is a bad guy, Bernice. And I'm not so great. I'm an average guy. I'm better than most, but worse than some. All right. Stuff. That's a tough name to say. I think you do that on purpose for creators. Stuff Shuffling Squirrel. Wow. Are there any parole hearings online? I have video of 2 of them. Funny you should ask.
It seemed
That's
like
not
a match
one.
made in heaven. But a troubled marriage
Do I have
pushed
autoplay
her
put
to
on?
the edge.
I went
Oh, no.
crazy.
There, this is the video that you guys can watch on your own. It's Dateline, so I don't want to just watch it because there's every reason why it might still be copyrighted as a creative product. of the show, and I haven't seen it before, so I don't have anything to add. So what I'm going to do is post that link in the chat. We'll pin it. You guys can go there and then come back, and then that way it goes into your history. And then we'll spend like 5 minutes kind of wrapping up and going home. Pretend Son is here too. Yeah, your mum is being mean. The place to come is a Dan D chat. What are we gonna do? You know what? She kind of did age well, Stuff Shuffling Squirrel, because that's 2017. She's 73 years old. With a decent head of hair. It's not a bad looking woman for 73. She's 41 during her trial. So, compared to a lot of women, a lot of people who spend time in jail, it's not good. But I think she looks remarkably better than a lot of people who've spent as much time as she has. And she still looks smug when she's going in. That particular parole hearing that this picture's from, she went in and just kind of, I did nothing wrong. I'd do it all again if I was faced with the same situation. So there's a certain satisfaction in doing well in prison, and she's pretty proud of her story. So yeah, it's just, yeah, exactly. The blonde is a big difference, but look at that, to be able to maintain that sort of hair swoop, there's a naturalness to it. Yeah, but she could look worse. In any case, let's see, you have the link. I'm going to watch that. I'm going to run myself a warm bath and watch some Dateline alongside of you. Tomorrow I'll be home and doing this from my studio. Well, let's have a look quickly at what the next video is going to have, because we're going to watch this separately. Let's see how the next day's testimony starts.
There were several specific things that you...
Testimony continues. So we've got 3 hours. Fuck me. The whole 3 hours and 30 minutes is still all Betty.
I don't know when he switched cars. And the time I got in the back seat was not in the back seat of a red Corvette. There is no back seat in a red Corvette.
There is no back. That's her. Oh my God, that was some Marissa Tomei. The 67 Charger doesn't have a double overhead camshaft. There is no back seat in a Corvette. Not quite as sassy, but that's a Marissa Tomei moment. All right, so we have that to look forward to when we come back. We'll watch the whole thing tomorrow. If it's only 3.5 hours, we'll go for 5 or 6 tomorrow night. And I don't even have my books with me, but if we stay on schedule, we'll be done the marathon on Saturday, May 2nd. That'll be the verdict and sentencing. Any extra videos I have, parole hearings, letters from Betty to journalists, all that extra type of content, I'll have that all on the back burner. And if we go for a bit of a marathon day on Saturday, we'll do that. I'll start a little early so we don't go, or so that it's not already this late by the time we're done the video. So people on the East Coast and in the UK won't have to be staying up all night. We can stay up some of the night, though. It's worth staying up some of the night. Party all night and part of every day. No, rock and roll all night and part of every day. That's the way the song goes. All right, what else are we going to do? Oh, I posted this. My God, these guys, I'm sure this is AI music. We'll play about 6 seconds of it. By a band called Frugit, and it's about cats. This one's about, I need them biscuits. Anyway, if you want to check that out, Frugit, a little different than the Betty Broderick coverage, but it's about cats, and it's intense. It's high. You gotta like a high beats per minute to get into it, but throw a little shout out to them because I thought it was fantastic and listened to like the entire channel after I found it. I think she does argue with the judge. I don't know if she's going to argue when he reads out the verdict, but there's more to come. Special thanks to Victoria Carmen. She's come into slightly hostile territory to defend Betty's side of the argument. We're getting lots of details from her. Frugit, that's right, Disney Mom, Frugit is the name of the channel that has, maybe it's just AI art and real music, whatever it is. It is fantastic. Ever see The Cat Came? The Cat Came Back is a Canadian song. That is from same people that do a song about the black fly. The cat came back the very next day. The cat came back. We thought he was a goner, but the cat came back. He just wouldn't stay away. And it's this hand-drawn line animation, kind of in the style of home movies, where a guy is just trying to get rid of this cat that keeps messing with him and ruining his couch, drives him further and further away, and most of the time the cat's already back at the house by the time that he gets back from wherever he's dropping him off, and slowly gets driven mad by the cat. The cat came back. Oh yeah, no, I'm well aware of that. And the other song is about black flies. I'll die with the black flies picking my bones in North Ontario, North Ontario. And I think it's just a song of guys working on the railroad up in North Ontario getting eaten alive by black fly, which doesn't sound very nice. Okay, so I've given you something to watch. You can watch the Dateline. You can watch Need Them Biscuits. I need them biscuits. Wish me a safe drive home in the morning. Gonna have a nice, relaxing, hot bath. Dateline, maybe a little kitten-based music. Who do we got to say goodbye to tonight? Who stayed with us this long? Disney Mom still commenting. Victoria Carmen's here. Bernice Conklin. Wasn't that cool that we got, was it Mandy's cat? 13 Mandy's cat is eating food, real food, thanks to Dan D's cat advice. Might have to become a side channel. Detective Wolbafit, another Elizabeth in the room. It's good to have you. Pretend son said bad things about you, but we didn't believe him. He didn't bring any evidence. He just came in bad-mouthing you, so we're not going to believe pretend son saying anything about Detective Wolbafit. Stuff Shuffling Squirrel is new. Ocean Sounds has been here almost all night. Thank you, Ocean Sounds. Another one to say, always glad to see you. I think that's as far back as I can really scroll. Candace is possibly still with us. It's great seeing so many familiar names. I really like that we're watching this as a community and having a chance to debate different sides. It's nice when we're all in agreement. So with someone like Sarah, it's cathartic to just, kind of have 2 minutes of hate. But I find this one really interesting because I'm all over the map, and the more good comments I read, the more I'm like, okay, maybe I'll rethink this, and no, maybe I shouldn't rethink it because somebody else posts a great comment about, how terrible she is, and then Victoria posts a comment that makes me, I got to look more into that, and yeah, there's a lot of good stuff happening here, a lot of good times. So thank you everyone who's been a part of it. I think, let me just go to my main screen here. I'm supposed to, I've scheduled. There, I come to this. Look at my hair. I've got no product in my hair. I've just been out in the fresh water and letting the wind blow it around. So, that's it. There's the hairline. Natural, though. A little bit of a Chris Walken happening. I was outside. No, that's terrible, Chris Walken. Better just do the impression or do the look than the impression. You guys are fine, and I'm Dan D. Together, we're fine and dandy. This is the end of today's stream. I'll see you at this time, minus 3 hours and 23 minutes tomorrow. Chat will stay open for a couple of minutes, so you can say your goodbyes. I'll be there in the chat. See you tomorrow.